Well, it's November again, and every November for the past few years, we've had a pretty special occasion. Special depending on if you like it or not, which is a brand new Pokemon game. And of course, me being in my mid to late 20s, because the number isn't really necessarily important, meaning I am a boomer, so I do like boomer games, and Pokemon is one of those games as well. So. So we have a new Pokemon game coming out. And tonight we're going to be discussing pretty much my experiences with it. And I do have a special guest with me that will go over her own experiences with the franchise as well. And kind of just sum up how we feel about it, how everything around the franchise kind of goes for us. Because, I'm a boomer at this point, almost a 30-year-old boomer, and I like to talk about old things, and because that's always fun to me. And this is a podcast as well, so we're gonna podcast the best like no one ever was. My name's Chris, and this is just another Neckbeards podcast. All right, welcome again, everybody, to another episode. And again, if you didn't listen to that intro, I don't know why you wouldn't. We're talking about Pokemon because Pokemon Sword and Shield is literally just around the corner. It comes out in November 15th, so just a few days. So get your weekend wallet ready because you're going to deplete it because you're probably going to buy both versions. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, yeah, Pokemon's exciting. So before we get really into it, I want to introduce everybody to my special guest, my friend Jamie.
Hi. How's it going?
Sporting a Sailor Moon t-shirt,
Yep.
complete 90s.
90s love. I miss it.
90s. You miss the 90s.
I do.
So 90s kid.
Yep.
All right. Anyway, speaking of 90s stuff, so Pokemon is... it's actually kind of late 90s in reality because Pokemon came out more or less around 96 in Japan, and then 97 was when it came to America. Or maybe 98. I'm not really exact on the date. I probably should have researched that a little bit better. But
we were young when it came out, so that's a good indicator of when it came out.
Right, yeah. I was young. I was a baby. No. So, yeah, it's... late 90s stuff, but I don't know where I was going with that. Anyway, just to kind of preface it on how I was really introduced in the series, because it was everywhere. Pokemon was literally everywhere in the 90s. You couldn't avoid it. It was a worldwide phenomenon when it came out. And, I thought you were going to say something.
No.
You pointed at me, so I switched cameras.
I moved the mic.
Oh,
Hello.
I thought you were going to say something, so I switched cameras. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, I grew up pretty much, it was so big around schools and everything like that. We had a lot of issues because of it, because it changed everything as far as how things could be marketed towards kids, how things could be perceived by children at that point, and it changed the way parents viewed media in and of itself. Just because of how large it was in terms of sales and widespread notoriety. But anyway, so I grew up, when I first received the game, it had already been out for a little while, so we'd seen it on playgrounds. There was kids talking about it, and most importantly, there was a show that went along with the game, and that really kind of helped enforce people to get the game as well, because you see a cartoon, which turns out it was an anime, but we don't know that when we were kids. But it changed the way, we all watched the show, and then we all wanted to play the game because we liked the monsters we saw in there, and it came about like that. Why don't you tell me how you kind of came into the series itself?
Yeah. So, it's kind of like when you wake up, you kind of like watch morning cartoons, and you just kind of Pokemon was on. And, I remember even to this day, we could all sit down and watch Pokemon, and, Pikachu would be like, Pikachu or Bulbasaur. And my parents to this day,
Pikachu would say his name, and so would Bulbasaur.
Yeah, my parents, I would sit there on, on the floor, just kind of watch the series, and my parents, no joke, were like, how do you know what they're saying? So, and it was just like, you just get it, So, I definitely watched the series, as a kid. And then, they released Pokemon cards, and it was like a big phenomenon. Like, all the neighborhood kids had them. Like, we would be in the streets and being like, oh my gosh, look at me and my holographic card. And it was big. It was a big deal back then, Still is, but I just remember it being crazy good.
Yeah, I mean, it's Pokemon's just as insane now as it was back then. Maybe even a little bit more, because all the people that, like I said earlier, all the people that grew up with it more or less still like the game. Because it's something that stayed with us our whole lives, and it's something that we just we keep getting reintroduced to because they add in more Pokemon, they add in things that we like to see. And most importantly, they know how to nostalgia bait us with some of the newer versions of the game where they remake them and things like that, because people like to see the same thing over and over again. We like to repeat ourselves.
Yeah.
Much like I repeat myself all the time on the microphone. I just like this. I like that sound of my own voice.
I know I say a lot, and
yeah, I do that.
Yeah.
That's normal. Everybody does that. It's something that you have to really work hard to get rid of. And yeah, I just did it. But yeah, so Pokemon became what we kind of see now as a real trifecta of media content. We had games, movies, we had cards, we had the TV show, we had toys. I mean, it had everything going for it in the most perfect way possible that could even cause such a big breakthrough for just something as small. It was something as no name as Game Freak was at the time. Game Freak was a studio that originally wasn't even going to be able to do anything. Like they were nobody, and Pokemon was what really brought them into the limelight. And then Nintendo took major stock of them. So contrary to popular belief, the Pokemon isn't actually owned by Nintendo. They just own a majority of it.
Really?
Yes, because the Pokemon Company is its own thing. It might actually be owned fully by Nintendo now, but previously, prior to I would say a few years ago, probably around Generation 4 for the Pokemon series, it was still its own. Like Game Freak was still its own thing. It wasn't even. I mean, I don't know if Game Freak is still even the company name that manufactures it. It might just be the Pokemon Company.
I'd have to double check, because I definitely remember, like, when you turn on your Game Boy, like your old school Game Boy, the Game Freak logo would pop up, and I think it was, maybe I'd have to jog my memory, but wasn't even like a surfboard type of logo, or
it was something. It was similar. Like a swirl. Yeah, it was a swirl.
So it'd be sad if they, dipped out and out, but
no. I see. The thing is, Nintendo owns too much majority of them. They wouldn't be able to.
Yeah.
And that's why people more or less say Pokemon's owned by Nintendo. And when it's really just, if you actually look into the history of the company, it's more or less they just own a majority of that. But enough time has passed that they might actually just own the rights to it, and they might have just bought the name. So I could be entirely wrong. Again, didn't really research into that because it's not important. I mean,
right.
As far as the history of how it started, I know that because I remember researching that before. As far as where it's at now, I'm not that worried about it because they're still going to make games.
Yeah.
So, but again, Pokemon was around the schoolyards, around everything when we were growing up.
It's also a theme park. Now I'm just thinking about it.
You know what?
It's actually a theme park.
Where at? So tell me about it.
Well, I don't really know where, but if I had to guess, I'm sure Universal Studios would probably be behind it. But I definitely, maybe it's in Japan. I want to think it's in Japan.
I know there's a few like theme parks in Japan that are video game based.
Yeah, maybe that's
like there was the Resident Evil experience in Japan that was like a zombie survival attraction. It wasn't even it was just an attraction. It wasn't like a theme park. But then they have I know Nintendo is making like their own little like Nintendo like Universal Studio, like they're collabing with Universal Studios to make like Nintendo World, where it's like a Nintendo theme park. But there's like the only if you look at it, there's it's mostly just Mario and Donkey Kong. I don't think they've shown any other like franchises being represented in that, and that's fine because those are the two
pretty
biggest.
Iconic too.
Yeah, those are the two biggest franchises for Nintendo is Donkey Kong and Mario. So it makes sense because like there's like a Mario. I know we've had stuff shown to us about what it's going to be, and there's like a Mario Kart attraction where it's like a kart ride, or it's like go karts, and then they have like a Donkey Kong like mine kart ride, and I think there's a few other ones, but I haven't really looked in.
But could you imagine?
It could change on a moment's notice. You know?
Could you imagine though, like still like being like a kid and having our experience with like Pokemon games and the cards, and then to find out like, oh, honey, we're actually going to Pokemon World, and it's like, oh my gosh, like how cool would that be? So I mean, I'm sure as an adult, I'd probably still find my way there, but as a kid, that would be like, oh my gosh.
I do know that in New York City there was like a Pokemon store. And I think there might have been a couple other like Pokemon stores in the U.S., but I know for sure there was one in New York, and then that actually just changed into the Nintendo World Store like not too long ago. But they do have like their own separate floor just for Pokemon stuff, which is just full of toys and plushies and all these other.
And that's crazy that it's still a market. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, we were kids when that was like real thing, and now
I was like 8, like 7 or 8 years old when I first got into the game, and the fact that it's still just as big now, it's insane. But I mean, it really shows how widespread appeal it really has. Yeah,
and it's stayed relevant. You know what I mean? Like Yu-Gi-Oh is big, and it's still maybe depending on who you ask that's big, but I would say as a gamer nerd and that it's not as relevant today as it used to be.
Oh,
so that
sure.
Pokemon like stayed alive and stayed relevant and stayed popular is pretty amazing.
I mean Yu-Gi-Oh's I mentioned this on my Yu-Gi-Oh show where they change the format so often that it does help kind of keep the game fresh, but it also like the way they change it up so harshly and they allow old formats to still play, it more or less isolates or ostracizes older formats in favor of newer ones. So, and that's why I don't understand why they don't take the Magic the Gathering or some other, even Pokemon the trading card game, they cycle old cards out. They say these ones you can't use these after this set anymore. They don't let people use that so that it'll actually encourage people to buy new sets and keep up to date with the game. Not to say that there's anything wrong with that. I do prefer kind of the older format of Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah.
The newer format of Yu-Gi-Oh kind of sucks. It's kind of why I dropped the game. But, I mean, it makes sense. Anyway, so back to talking about playground stuff.
I know, we'll be here for a while. We have to switch gears.
This is going to be a long one, folks.
And when he asked me to talk about Pokemon, I was like, okay. It's just stuff. It's just so much to talk about,
Yeah, well, we like I said, we had like a really in-depth conversations before, and that's why I wanted to bring you on for this. So just to kind of preface some of how big of a influence Pokemon was on just when we were young in general and how everywhere it was, did your school have to put a ban on Pokemon?
Eventually. Okay. Definitely Yu-Gi-Oh for sure, but with Pokemon and like, electronics nowadays, you can't pull out your iPod, you can't have any phones. It was in the beginning it was fine, things were more of like, okay, well we have, my school growing up was kind of like a little bit more chill, but it was definitely like we could play a little bit. And I definitely remember playing my, my Game Boy, my Pokemon game at school. And then eventually it got to the point with like trading cards and then things maybe getting stolen that, the school was like, okay, well this might be too much. And then, religion might, play a big part about, because, some parents were like, oh, this is, these are monsters, and we can dive into that if you want.
Satanic,
yeah, we can. It's just it started to definitely go on lockdown for sure. So.
Yeah, and I kind of had the same thing. I was in like fourth grade. Yeah, I was in like fourth grade, and the school I was going to, they had to put and it was right around when the cards were coming out, because the cards didn't come out right away. The cards came, I want to say like half a year later, like a pretty short time. But after the game came out, but once the cards started coming out, schools had like it was just everywhere. There was cards, people were bringing their cards to school, playing the game, and the school had to just put an outright ban on it, and they would confiscate any of that material if you'd even brought it into school. So we ended up not really like, there was probably, obviously there's kids still sneaking this stuff around and stuff like that, but that was when I stopped bringing all my Pokemon stuff with me to school, because I didn't want my stuff taken away.
Yeah, that's like a horrible feeling when you're a kid.
Yeah, when you're a kid, you're like, no, don't take my, especially when you're like really into Pokemon, don't take my Pokemon cards, please.
Like, and you just, you're just being innocent and give me your Pokemon. You know what I mean? It's like, oh God, what an awful feeling. So keep it away.
Yeah. But I mean, we still talked about it all the time around the schoolyard. I mean, and again,
you traded on the bus.
Well, I didn't see how, that's the thing. I wasn't really into trading that much.
Oh yeah.
I liked battling. Battling was fun, but we didn't really trade. We were way into cloning.
What do you mean? Hang on, what is cloning?
I'll get into that later when we start getting into some other stuff.
That's a new term.
But yeah, there was we were way into cloning Pokemon, so that was really what the schoolyard stuff was for me. But we played, we battled sometimes, but as far as like, we more or less talked about what we were doing in the games, and we were talked about not so many people talked about the show that much. I kind of did, because I would wake up every morning to catch the show. Because it wasn't just Saturday mornings where they played the show. Like, it was so popular, they played the show, I believe, early mornings, most of the days of the week.
Mm-hmm.
Because I would wake up at like 6:30 in the morning to turn on the TV and watch Pokemon before I go to school. Because I remember watching it a few times before I went to school. Not all the time, but I would try to catch it. And
something you look forward to, for sure.
Yeah. I was always, and I was so into it. Any chance I could get to ever catch any of that stuff, I would do that. I mean, it's kind of like, okay, to kind of spoil something that's coming later, it's kind of like how I obsess about like YouTubers that I find now, because I just get really into seeing how much of the insanity I can find about them. It's just a rabbit hole of content that I try to find. And that's kind of how I was when I was a kid. When when it came to Pokemon, anything I could find about it, I would just gobble it up. I would just want more and more.
You find someone that loves Pokemon, and you're like, oh my God, me too.
Yeah, I mean, it really helped. It did. It helped make new friends and stuff like that. It caused some fights on school, because this isn't really centered around Pokemon, but one of the like few instances where I was in a schoolyard fight, it wasn't centered around Pokemon, so this doesn't really have any relevance to it. But one of my friends that I would frequently talk to about Pokemon all the time, we were really into it together, and he was my classmate. He was in a fight with another girl. I honestly, I never even knew what it was. I just saw them fighting each other, and I ended up stepping in to help my friend out.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, and this is bad. This is pretty bad. I ended up like, I was full on charging at the girl, like with my head down, just charging at the girl like that, and just headbutted her right in the gut.
You did not.
Into a fence line. And I totally, yes. And immediately, like after that happened, I got, all three of us got sent to the principal's office, and here's me sitting in between both of them, just going, "I'm sorry." I'm just tearing up and just crying because I'm in trouble. I'd never been, I had been to the principal's office one other time before, but that was another time I got. I'll just tell it.
Just tell. I'm
already there.
You're already there. Just spill it.
But so I was crying, and I apologized to the girl. Never spoke to her again.
She probably left you all alone.
Well, I mean, and then my dad never my dad never let me hear the end of it.
Yeah.
He would just call me a girl fighter. He
You
just
headbutted a girl.
Yeah,
You didn't shove her. You didn't spit nasty insults. You headbutted her.
I full on NFL charged into her stomach and threw her into the fence line. So,
Don't tell Kelsey.
but the only other time I'd been into a schoolyard fight was when I was, I think, in the grade earlier. There was actually no, it was it was the grade earlier, and I had gotten into a fight with this group of girls that had. So there was a tall girl in our class. She was like obviously somebody that was going through puberty faster than everybody else.
She was tall.
She was I'm a little kid. I'm like 3. I was like probably around 3'9" or 4 feet tall, and this girl had to have been like 4.5 feet tall. Like
man.
She looked like a giant compared to like everybody else in the class.
Call the model agency. We have the next supermodel at 4'9".
4'9". No, but it really had. She had. What happened was we were sitting in a round circle in one of our classes. I think it was music class or something, but we were just sitting Indian style on the floor for something. And she had let one slip. So she farted, and I know you remember Lauren. Lauren was in my class at this time, so she can vouch for me on this. Lauren's my cousin. She had, she'd let one slip, and I didn't let her hear the end of it.
Of course you didn't. You can't just let it go.
Yeah, I'd worked something that worked with. I don't remember her name fully, but I called her Atom Bomb because it had something like her name, my last name might have been Adam or something like that, or like Adams. So I called her the Atom Bomb. And because she farted and like never let her hear the end of it.
Oh.
But what ended up happening is she and her got her crew together, and I swear this had to have happened like at like the end of recess or like something, because it was like a Western. It was literally, it was like a Western where it was like the playground was just empty. Like I could see the tumbleweeds going across the like soccer field. And here I am on the jungle gym, and all 3 of these girls start walking up, and they just start chasing me down because they wanted to beat me up.
You should have just headbutted all 3 of them.
I elbowed one of them in the face.
So it gets worse.
But it wasn't on purpose. So what happened?
Self-defense.
No. Like what happened was I was turning the staircase that you.
Yeah.
Some of them have like this little round staircase, and it goes up a little bit and then it just cuts off because that's where the end of the jungle gym part is.
Right.
So what it is I ran up the stairs and spun around the pole to give myself the speed boost around it so I could get away, because I was just trying to bolt out of there because they were trying to beat me up. And I ended up accidentally elbowing one of the girls in the face while I did that. And one of the teachers, intervened, and, we all got sent to the principal office. All 3 of the girls were in their own separate one. I was sitting outside by myself, and the teacher was asking me what happened. And I was like, they're trying to beat me up. I was just trying to get away. I didn't get in trouble. So I activated my white privilege card and said, I'm innocent. I didn't do anything, even though the girl was the only one that had actually gotten any, physical pain to her. So, in reality is I was making fun of the girl was kind of what instigated it all.
Moral of the story: do not come after you.
Yeah. Don't come after me.
I know at recess, not to be like a total nerd and go back to Pokemon, because I didn't have very dramatic recesses, but so when I was a kid, you know how like you could find rocks or whatever. So so like the way my school was is we had like, the giant, we had a giant field where mostly we would play kickball or whatever. We were just it was a very open school. I'm surprised no children went missing because it was so it was like a dog park for children. You know what I mean? So we had like the jungle gym, and then we had a field, and there was rocks in the field. And, I didn't get into any fights, but I summoned my Charizard over there. I literally would throw rocks and be like, I choose, or I summon, or I can't remember. I was so long ago, but I literally would throw a rock and be like, go, oh, that's what it is. Go Charizard. Or, I was lame. I had no friends.
Did you pelt a kid in the face with a rock?
Okay, maybe later, but yeah, I mean, I definitely would be out in the field frolicking by myself and be like, my Pokemon. It was, playing Magic and pretend with myself.
Yeah, but I mean, I played pretend all the time too. I mean, there was a time where, I mean, again, at this point, this is just schoolyard stories podcast rather than Pokemon. We're so off track at this point, but I'm loving it. So one time I had picked up those little small mushrooms that kind of grow on the ground sometimes.
Yeah, like the fungus mushrooms.
Yeah. And I picked one up and I was like, I'm Mario.
Oh.
As soon as I picked it up off the ground, the teacher ran over and she smacked it out of my hand. She was like, don't eat that. I was like, I wasn't going to eat it.
You never know. I mean, it's Mario and... I mean, how does he get big? He eats the mushroom and
he just touches it.
And then, he runs in. Sorry if I'm talking too loud. I'm getting really excited. Then he finds a fireball flower.
Finds a fireball flower?
Yeah. What does he eat it too? And then he can. I don't even.
Smash Bros. He just shoots fire out of it.
But yeah. No, yeah. Good times. Yeah. Childhood and things like that.
Right. Well, we've gone off track long enough. Why don't we get back to schoolyard Pokemon at least? At least it's kind of similar.
Yeah, lots of stories for y'all.
But one of the so one of the things that happened and this was after the ban. This is after the card ban, after the whole Pokemon ban from school. One of my art teachers it's actually really funny looking back on it. I didn't even realize how into it I was, but it's kind of because my whole life I've been into Japanese culture. I love the aesthetics of it. I love old Renaissance Japan. It's really interesting. And my art teacher when I was in elementary school had us do an actual a project where it was a small schoolyard Japanese festival.
What school did you go to? Because that sounds like a really rad school. We did nothing like that.
Yeah, so I think the school I went to might have been a semi-private school. It was it was for sure. Maybe it was private. I don't know. Huh? Maybe a charter school. Anyway, so we had a little small Japanese festival, and we made our own the sandals, the wooden sandals that have the two prongs on them.
Walk on.
Yeah, and we were supposed to walk on them, and I kept falling over because.
Did you guys get kimonos and all that too?
No, we didn't have kimonos.
Oh, just the sandals.
I think I just wore a bathrobe or something.
There you go.
I don't even think we wore anything special, but. I do remember the sandals because I had them for a while until I eventually threw them out when I was in middle school.
They're no longer considered cool.
Well, I never wore them outside of that. That was the only time I ever wore them. You should have. But we had other things that were made for the class, and the teacher liked my she liked my work, I guess, that I'd done, and I guess she must have traveled to Japan at some point because.
So what did you make?
We made it's elementary school art, so it's just whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought,
This wasn't later. This was in elementary school. But I mean, something probably with floral patterns or again
something with the culture.
Yeah,
gotcha.
I mean, I had straight A's, in school, and I went over above and beyond whenever I was in my education. At that point in my age, by the time I got to high school, I just didn't care anymore.
Yeah.
But
I think it'd be hard. It's hard to fail as a kid. You know what I mean?
I just stopped getting challenged by the time when I was in high school. I just stopped getting challenged on my education, so I just stopped caring.
Yeah.
So It didn't like when I was even in advanced math class, and it was just like whatever. I didn't even like I slept in class, and then I would take a test, and I'd still get A's on the test. So
Wow, that's must be very nice.
Yeah.
I was bad at school. I mean, not bad, but I had to really really focus, and yeah, I checked out senior year for sure. So I get it.
Yeah, my later high school years, I definitely checked out, and then college was just way worse. But the art teacher had it was during the festival too when she'd done this. She'd brought me into the principal's office, and
you beat up these girls, but you got some good looking art.
I've been to the principal's office not just for getting in trouble. I've been there for getting like awards and stuff too. But she had actually given me a Japanese Pokemon card. It was, and I still remember it was Kingler. It was a Japanese Kingler card. And I don't have that card anymore because I gave all my Pokemon cards away later. But it was really cool because and like she knew this was something that kids would like because this is at the height of Pokemon and it was so cool. That I had got, and all the Japanese cards have their own unique art compared to the American ones. They're
so different too.
Yeah, so it was just a really unique card. I mean, it wasn't even holographic. It was a card from Japan. She gave it to me, and from that point on, I mean, I just put it in my binder with the rest of them. But it was really cool. And that always stood out to me from as far as like I remember because it was so banned, and then like her acknowledging that and giving it to me. Yeah, it was really cool. It just stood out so much.
Yeah. Did you do any research on if I'm assuming very relevant in Japan, but do you know if we took it to the level that they did out there? Like, do you think it was just as popular out in Japan? Or do you think more?
It's always been. I would say it's probably close to the same. I never looked up any numbers.
Yeah.
But I assume that if anything, because Tokyo is so condensed, because Japan's a much smaller country than the entirety of America. Japan only takes up, if you were to put them next to each other on a map, Japan's maybe the size of half the size of California. Japan's pretty small. But I mean, there's so many people that are condensed into the major cities there that stuff like that can spread really fast. Right. So it might, I know, like on paper, stuff. When you look at it from a perspective like that, it might seem like it's way bigger in Japan than here. Mm-hmm. But the reality is it's probably about the same. It's just more widespread here, and it's more condensed in Japan.
I always found that really interesting. Like, I know that's probably their culture, and, like anime and all of that sort of stuff is really, really popular out there. But here, you have like your groups of people where, I mean, back then, Pokemon was very popular with kids, but when you start to get to a certain age, like there's a limit where you can't really talk about liking anime or Pokemon. Yeah,
there's a certain drop off, and that's relevant in every culture, even here in America, because I've had that happen to me.
Yeah. You get nerd shamed.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the things that I wanted to bring up, but I haven't quite gotten to that point yet in terms of. But I might as well. We might as well just start moving forward, and we can get into the actual game specific stuff later. But I had actually one of the first major instances of me ever being bullied was because of Pokemon. It was when I first moved out here, and I had just graduated 5th grade. I was going into middle school. And I would ride my bike down to the gas station every now and then with some pocket change. And I would go get a slushie because I loved slushies. I still like them today when I was a kid.
Good old days, yeah.
Yeah, I would just ride up to the gas station, get a slushie, and go home. And I was riding my bike, and this group of kids, they were obviously older kids. They're probably around like 14 because it may be a little bit younger than that, like 13 or 14. And I'm like 10. And it's not they're not later teenagers because at that point most teenagers are out driving cars or hanging out with their friends. They're not really riding bikes around. But they can
still be mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah, obviously. And I mean I do know that there were a few grade levels above me, so it might have been like 8th grade. But anyway, I was riding my bike up there and I was wearing a Pokemon t-shirt, and these kids, rode their bikes by me, and and they go. They're like, "Oh, kid, you like Pokemon? That shit." He goes, "Pokemon's stupid. You're an idiot." And that actually, it made me cry because I never, nobody had ever, really been overtly that mean to me before. And
it kinda shocks you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm being lighter about it than I am, but, it was really mean. It actually made me really upset. I ended up, crying and going home. And that was actually the point where I completely dropped Pokemon entirely because of that. I stopped wearing T-shirts. I didn't even play the games anymore at that point because it actually really, it really made me upset.
That's like a, it's just society thing. It's like if something's not perceived as, oh, well, that's nerdy. Well, people, it just takes one negative impact to really just make you lose interest in something. And you may not lose interest, but it can definitely make you change who you are, which is really, that sucks, but
yeah,
I'm sorry that happened.
No, you're fine. I mean,
well, no, but it's just like when you're a kid, it's like your interest and that's what you like. And for somebody, especially boys that are older, to be like, oh, that's stupid. Are you stupid?
Well, yeah. And you got to realize, when you're at that age, you look up to people that are older than you. And if people that are older than you are ridiculing for the things that you like, it obviously makes you want to have a change about it.
Yeah, that Pokemon's not perceived as cool as you thought. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it made me drop the Pokemon for a while. And it's the reason why I still have never actually played any of the Generation 3 games. Because I was at that, they came out during that time where I totally dropped it and I just completely ignored it because I was basically made fun of for it.
I knew that people judge people for that sort of thing. So for a long time growing up, I was a closet anime Pokemon fan. I didn't tell anybody for a long, long time that I was into that sort of stuff. And then I would draw in school, and I like to draw anime style. And a lot of people were like, "Oh." They would see it, and the moment they saw it, it was like my blood went hot, and I was like, "Oh no, I'm not." I'd shut it real fast, and you know what I mean.
I'm not a weeb. I'm not a weeb.
Yeah, I'm like, no. So and you just want to. Yeah, I was definitely a closet Pokemon fan for a long time, but I would always stay up late, and I'd have the little flashlight. You know what I mean? They attached to your Pokemon game, your Game Boy.
Yeah, the worm light.
Yeah, and I'd always play it at night. But I was a closet nerd for a long time.
Did you ever have a point where you dropped off the series, or was it just?
Yeah, so I watched the movies. I watched the movies, and I enjoyed them. Closet, freak, and but I didn't ever talk about them. But I definitely probably dropped the series when it went to season 2. I played the games, and that's how I kind of understood what was going on with the season 2 games. But I didn't really watch most of the anime at that point. Kind of stopped watching cartoons.
Yeah, I stopped watching the show pretty early on, but that wasn't because I was ridiculed for enjoying Pokemon. It was just because I didn't want to watch the show anymore. I was more into playing the game. But speaking about the show, because I did watch it a lot, and we're all really into it. Were you there when because the show is so popular, it obviously spawned a movie. Mm-hmm. Were you there when it came out in theaters? Did you go to the movie and see it in theaters? Did you got the little promo Mew card?
Yes.
Yeah, everybody thought they were so cool when they had it, but it was just
then we all showed
literally
it off.
Everybody has that card.
Yeah, and I think they did that for the second movie too. They had
they had a promo card for the second one. I remember,
and that was pretty cool. But it was very oh, you're. You know what I mean? You're not very cool because we all have it too.
Yeah,
you know what I
know.
mean?
Everybody had it. Well, the what's funny is the movie is again, because Pokemon created a lot of firsts in my life. Pokemon, the first movie, is the first I know a lot of firsts. Is the first instance where I actually cried in the movie theaters.
It was sad though. When you're a kid,
Ash
though,
dies in the movie.
It pulled your heartstrings. They had the music all. It was good. And I think not a kid in that theater did not cry.
I bawled my eyes out, and I never cried at any movie before. I cried at Pokemon, the first movie, because looking back at it, I could see why. I was so into Pokemon. Yeah. I loved everything about it. I loved the show. And it just, the main character, somebody that you've been with, since, if you watched it from the beginning, you've been with the whole time, who's supposed to be a representation of you.
Yeah.
He dies, and then you and you're like, no, it's
and I
sad.
think
And then
it's
all
so
the Pokemon are
start
crying.
Yeah, and I think just the message is that, with the whole Pokemon and the clones versus the real and how they all cry. Yeah, it was emotional. Like, even now, like, if I watch, I won't cry, but I'll definitely feel like, ooh. Like, you just kind of it takes you back just a little bit. Just
Yeah, well, maybe for you.
No, not anymore
for
for
me,
you.
if I see that again, I'm like, man, I thought
I was such a
I was
nerd.
like, this is so bad writing. Like, that's what I see it as. Because
really, I have to rewatch it, but I could swear that it wasn't terrible.
What it is apparently there's like a line in the movie where Brock mentioned something about Pokemon tears having mysterious properties or something like that, and all the Pokemon crying is supposed to like be a part of that. But from what I also remember, like, I don't ever remember hearing that line, and I think it was like a Japanese only line. So I think that's something I read as well. But I'm not gonna rewatch the movie twice just to find that out.
I think when you're a kid, like, it kind of makes sense because, like, Pokemon they're magical, kind of.
They're mysterious.
They're mysterious, and even when you kind of get introduced to the new generation of Pokemon, it's like, oh well, where were you guys? You know what I mean? So it's like they always kind of have this underlining mystery about them.
Yeah,
so
and
that
they all have their own like unique,
special, and I think they elaborate on that a little bit in the later generations, where it's like they actually have like God. Like the God Pokemon.
Yeah, when they have Arceus, he's supposed to be God, and then there's
which is
but what's funny is there's Arceus, and this is like super nerdy. Like, Arceus is supposed to be the god of Pokemon. He's like the god Pokemon. But then there's Mew, who's like the ancestor of every single Pokemon, and then there's Celebi, who's like the Pokemon of time, who can travel through time.
Yeah, that's when I started to tone it all out. I was like,
and then
this is too plot holy.
Then there's one from Generation 3 who's just like the DNA Pokemon, who's just like he's like he can change his form into anything.
Oh, no.
It's just like there's so many bizarre like Pokemon properties out there. That's just some of it makes almost no sense
because they all have to one up each other.
Exactly,
and awesomeness and amazingness.
Yeah.
So after the God Pokemon, I wonder where they'll go next.
Well, that was Generation 4. So I think as far as like the super big D on campus Pokemon, they started dialing it back a little bit. Like in Sun and Moon, they're the like super duper legendaries that are so there's like two types of legendaries in the game. There's normal legendaries, and then there's the Ultra Beasts, which are like alternate dimensional Pokemon that they're not really Pokemon.
They're demons.
Yeah, it's like some SMT stuff where they're like made out of like physical manifestations from like the real world here. Like there's one that's made out of just like electrical wires.
The garbage one?
No. Yeah, that's not. No, I know what you mean. The garbage.
Not Muck, but there's like a garbage dude.
That's Garbodor. That's a different. That's different.
That's cute, Garbodor.
Yeah, but he's made out of garbage. But no,
that'd be me if I was a Pokemon.
Well, there's the ice cream one too. Like he's just
the ice cream.
Yeah, he's just an ice cream. There's one that's just a snowflake. He's just a giant snowflake. Yeah. There's some really bad designs out there.
They're running out of ideas.
Well, I mean, it's been going on for years
for
and years
a long
at this
time.
point,
Yeah.
So they have to run out at some point.
Yeah.
But no, there's like the island. So in Sun and Moon, you go from island to island. Each island has like a tiki representative of that island, and that's that island's like protector, or they're and they're like these ancient Pokemon. But then there's in the story, there's like you open up like a wormhole to like another dimension, and there's like these monsters that come from this dimension, and they're not exactly Pokemon, but they're like not. It's like weird on how they are. There's one that's like a giant jellyfish. But it doesn't look like it's not like the Pokemon design where it's a jellyfish with eyeballs, like googly eyes on it, like
tentacle.
Like you ever go to like a souvenir shop and they have just a rock with googly eyes on it?
Yeah, you're like, what?
That's like a Pokemon design, but you take the googly eyes off, now it's an Ultra Beast.
Yeah. Oh. Evolved.
Yeah. So, but there's one
Yeah.
that's just like a bunch of electrical wires. There's one that's like a tank, like he's just a giant tank. But the best one out of it is like a giant mosquito, but he's like a hulked out mosquito.
Oh my god, you have to now.
I'm gonna show you the design of this Pokemon.
Because Generation 2 was my favorite, and I
let's
kind of
see.
played a little bit of 3, just a little. So this is, I mean, I kind of see from memes and things on, different Pokemon and things.
Yeah, here he is.
Oh.
This is a couple of them, but I'll bring this up for you to see. This is right there.
My.
The one on the right here is, I don't remember what his name is.
I need his protein shake.
Yeah, but he's just a hulked out mosquito.
That is
like, and he's one of the like first ones you see too. Here's actually all of them right here. We can.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, come on! I just want to zoom in. Really? All right.
Yeah.
Some of these are not very helpful. This is like a
my
toy line. But,
gosh. What is that with the giant teeth looking?
Yeah, that's the one that I was talking.
Oh my!
That's one of them. There's this one right here. That's like a giant wall. He's like a mechanized tank.
Oh my goodness.
There's the jellyfish one right there. I mean, there's the one that's he's a bunch of electrical wires. He's supposed to be like circuitry or something like that.
Yeah, they're kind of. I mean, not to narc on them or anything, but or criticize. I mean, but it kind of doesn't look like Pokemon. Like
no, they don't. That's why they're called Ultra Beasts, and like I said, they're from
so they're different.
They're from like they call them Ultra Beasts in the game. They're from another dimension. Like they
kind of look like Digimon.
They do. They kind of do. And actually, I wasn't even going to bring up Digimon, but Digimon kind of is the copycat of Pokemon. But we don't really need to.
No, that's for another video. We can save the juicy bits. For later.
Because we're already running at 45 minutes.
All right,
we haven't even talked really a lot about the game. We've talked, and I still have plenty of stories that I do want to go for.
All right, what do you want to talk about with the game? What do you want to talk about?
Because we're still on the cards, let me. Well, we were talking about the movies, but I want to go back to the card game for a little bit because were you really into the card game? Did you play the card game a lot?
I was a very smart child. I could read, but I
could read.
Did not understand how to read the cards of Pokemon. So no, I didn't play. We like my friends and I. We tried to kind of be like, oh well, this is clearly like a water symbol, and we can kind of understand like the basics of okay, well maybe this card is stronger than this card, but for the most part for the game, no, we did not. We did not play.
So I have the exact same response because I didn't know that there was really a game.
Yeah,
for
they didn't explain it.
Well, there are. So if you do buy a starter pack, there are rules. You do get a rule page with the game.
What little kid is gonna want to sit there and read?
Exactly.
It's like you get a new board game. Do you read the directions? No.
No. So what my brother and I did, we got our starter packs and we just threw the stuff away. We kept the Chansey coin because we didn't know what we were supposed to do with it. Which I ended up finding a Lugia coin later, but I don't even think I have that coin anymore. I might have lost it.
Yeah.
But I know I don't have the Chansey one anymore. I do have the because I only had the Lugia one that I remember. But anyway, so we thought the game was kind of like baseball cards, where you just collected them.
Yeah.
You just collected them, and then you compared your collection with everybody else,
right,
and then you traded them. Called a trading card game. But the last part of it, we didn't know there was an actual game behind it.
Yeah, same.
So we didn't know that you could actually battle or that there was a whole battling mechanic behind them. We just thought it was like, oh, here's a Pokemon and these are some of the moves they do.
Yeah.
So we just kind of collected them that way. And the special card that I got from my starter pack was a holographic Ninetails.
Ooh, fancy.
And this is how I got scammed out of that holographic Ninetails. So I went to my... That should
be the title of your podcast. Yeah. How I got scammed out of a Ninetails.
How I got scammed out of Ninetails.
Yeah.
No, so... That's pretty good, though.
Yeah.
So I had gone to one of my friends from school. I went to his birthday party, and it was like a sleepover party. And this is how I was kind of like, I was pretty socially awkward when I was really shy when I was a kid, but, I had fun. I would talk to some friends and, some kids, not every single one. But I was like, and this is how I think I might have been like a little autistic when I was a kid, and just or something wasn't right because something happened where I really wanted to watch this Sonic the Hedgehog VHS that I brought with me.
Oh yeah.
And I ended up like crying because I didn't get to watch it or something. It was really dumb. But we were all comparing Pokemon cards and stuff like that. I brought my collection. And my friend there, he really wanted the Ninetails, my Ninetails, and I don't even remember what I traded for. I had to have traded for like some absolute garbage or trash, because I was like, yeah, you can have my Ninetails for. It was like it must have been like Squirtle or something. It was like
no,
and like and it was a holographic Ninetails. It was like
Christopher.
It was a pretty rare card, but. Yeah,
but still for a Squirtle,
really?
really?
It was dumb. Again, I didn't know there was an actual like battling mechanic for the game, and I think they understood that, but I didn't really know, so I just was like, whatever. That's the whole point of it is you just trade cards,
right?
So I ended up giving that away, and then I never got it back, and then I realized later. I must have known somehow that there eventually was an actual card game to it because my neighbors up the street, they had the Game Boy game that was just the card game.
Oh,
that you played the card game on the Game Boy.
Well, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, so I knew at that point there had to have been some way to play the game. And we'd gone to Toys R Us to go. They had tournaments every Sunday or Saturday, some day like that. This is how my friend, my friends over there ended up getting Mew, and this is how we got into the whole cloning stuff, because we found out a way to clone Pokemon, and that was, he got a Mew there. I think it was a promotional for winning, or it might have just been a promo from Nintendo. If you brought your Game Boy, they'll trade a Mew to you. Because Mew was one of those Pokemon that was like a mythical one. Where it was like, oh, we don't know if he really exists. Everybody, you hear legends about him, and then you end up actually getting him in the game because there's no actual way to catch Pokemon or catch Mew in Pokemon. You can only receive him through special events, and so they would trade Mew that way because ever since the release of it, they'd never really mentioned that there was 151 Pokemon, but that was like, there's 151. There's a secret Pokemon. There's a secret one, because you see Mew 2, and everyone's like, "Where's Mew 1?"
Yeah,
So and that was Mew 1. It was just Mew.
Don't you miss that mindset though of like, there's a secret?
Yeah,
there's a secret.
Well,
yeah,
there is that in there still, but data mining is a thing.
Yeah.
So not really things are kept secret anymore. Like when Sun and Moon first came out, there was a secret Pokemon. I think it was like Mars Shadow or something like that. It was a fighting ghost type Pokemon. And he's like a little almost looks like Bruce Lee Pokemon. And he has like a special move, like a special Z Crystal move, which Z Crystals in Sun and Moon are like super powerful moves that you can only use once per battle.
Oh.
Kind of like Mega Evolutions. So you'd get that, but there was no way to actually get the Pokemon in the game. But his files were in there, so it was like, how do we get this Pokemon? He ended up not being a promotional Pokemon until Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon came out, and then he was a promotional Pokemon. So he'd been in there for a while, and we've had the same issue with X and Y and previous generations. They always future proof their promotions with it. They'll just reduce the roster by 2 or 3, and then they'll have special promotions for whenever the games come out or whatever.
Right.
Deoncé was one in X and Y. Which was another mythical one that you could only get through doing it this way. Or, you get a code for the Pokemon and you'd have to put in the code. So he had Mew on his game. Going back to talking about Mew.
Yeah.
He had Mew on his game, and this is kind of how we all learned about cloning. So because we stay the night because they lived right down the street from us, and my brother and I would go stay the night at their house regularly, and we would trade, we'd battle. And we learned that if you trade a Pokemon. And in the old ones, you had to link them up with the link cable.
Yeah.
And you had... so when you traded them, what you could do is one trade would go through first, and then the next person's would go through. So what would happen is you would trade the Pokemon you wanted to trade. Something about it was like say you wanted to clone, and this is how let's just say we were cloning Mew. So you would trade Mew to the other person, and while that other person gets Mew, while say I was trading Rattata for Mew, so I would get Mew, and then I would leave my game on, and while Rattata is being traded over to the other person before their game saves, they would turn the game off. So what would happen is the person that traded Mew would be able to keep their Mew, and the person that you traded to would have that same Mew as well. So you just essentially cloned the Pokemon.
We should have been friends a lot sooner because I had no idea that was a thing.
Yeah. And actually, this was actually a pretty well-known thing. I'm surprised you didn't know about this.
No, I lived a very sheltered life. So.
I don't remember exactly how we found out about this. Might have been because this was like early internet days, and there was a few like websites where you could go find like cheat codes and stuff like that. And somebody had to have had uploaded that, because this is also how we found out about the infinite rare candies, Missing No, and all those other like legend glitches and legends that you'd hear on the playground. All the like hidden stuff. So you get infinite rare candy, infinite master balls, all that stuff that we would constantly just abuse for our Pokemon.
What a simple time.
And we ended up all just we all cloned Mew onto our system. We all like cloned Mewtwo. So we each had like because Mewtwo was like really hard for a lot of us to catch, because I know for me in particular, before I knew about the Master Ball, Infinite Master Ball glitch, I ended up using my Master Ball on not Flareon, Moltres.
Oh yeah, that's right, with the
because
birds.
He was so hard for me to catch. I just threw Master Ball at Moltres because I couldn't catch him. So I didn't have a Master Ball for Mewtwo. Mewtwo's like insanely, like way harder to catch.
Yeah, like the ratio.
I think I ended up killing him too. So, and he doesn't respawn.
Yeah.
So I just I didn't have Mewtwo. So my friend cloned Mewtwo onto my system, and then everybody else were like, oh, I need Mewtwo too. So if we were missing a Pokemon, we just cloned the Pokemon onto each other's system, so nobody lost anything. We just go like catch like a level 2 Pidgey or something like that, and just just something to throw away, because who cares? Mm-hmm. And so we'd all have like I know my friends had completed the Pokedex, and my brother and I almost did, but at that point we were just like, we're Generation 2 had already come out, and I had dropped Generation 1 immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why, like, and speaking of terms of generations, for people that don't understand, there's Pokemon comes out in generations. There's Generation 1, which is the first games.
The original.
Generation 2, which is the next few. And every new set of games, because Pokemon's weird, they release their games in sets. And this is a total marketing gimmick by them, by the way. It was originally a product of lack of something having to do with lack of memory on the original renditions of the first generation of the games. Something about memory limitations for them to code in all the Pokemon in every single area.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to split it up, and that's why there's only about like 6 or 7 Pokemon that you can't get in the other versions of the game. Yeah,
that's right. I remember reading about like Kangaskhan, I think, is one of them.
It's like
the code is messed up or something.
There's Pinsir that you can only get in one. It's like you can get Pinsir or Kangaskhan, I think, in one. I know Growlithe only comes in one, and Vulpix is in the other one.
Yeah, isn't that strange? It's just
and it's something that they've kept going too, because it's a total marketing gimmick at this point. They know exactly how it affects. And because the whole tagline was you've got to catch them all,
right?
And
Well, I'm an OCD player anyway, like with my video games. Like I play a lot of RPG stuff, and like I will grind for hours. I will complete every quest just because I'm a completionist. Like I like to see everything is done.
Yeah, and you're not alone in that. A lot
Yeah.
of people have the same sentiment.
So yeah, then for this, you have to like buy another game and somehow find somebody to, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's definitely, that's smart, but it's really annoying.
It's smart for them, but not a lot of people really liked it. But again, it was a product of memory limitations
Right.
back then. Nowadays, it's not something that really is necessary. It's something that they kept though, that they keep because it's like, well, we can sell more copies of the game because there are people out there that do buy multiple copies of the game, or it's just something that helps boost their own sales for the game. And so I get why they do it. It's just not very consumer friendly.
Right.
But because of that, we do have a lot of missing Pokemon in each of the copies of the game. So it helps encourage the whole trading mechanic as well, and it keeps the game as a social game, and that was one of the big things that was advertised as. But again, another aspect of that was what did I already lost where I was at when I.
So we were talking about the generations.
Yeah. Okay, so that's right. So in between, or we have Generation 1, 2, and 3. Now, Generation 1 is like one of the more fondly remembered generations. A lot of people that played the game originally, they're like, oh, I love Generation 1. Generation 1's the best, has the best designs. When it's really like Generation 1 probably has the least original designs as far as Pokemon, because there's a lot, like Seal is just a Seal. Dugong is just a bigger version of Seal.
I enjoyed the art. So what I'm saying is not so much like Crystal Generation 2. I'm talking about like the revamped, where you can get Generation 1 and 2 and maybe bits of 3. I can't remember.
Oh, like the remakes.
Yeah, but I can't remember what game it is. I cannot remember. I think it's like not Silver. Anyway, so I really enjoyed the more refreshed versions of Generation 1. Yeah, it's cool with itself, but if I go back and play 1, I'm like it's
hard to go back to
hard.
Yeah, it's hard to go back to the Game Boy games in general because they're much more slower paced.
Right.
But I mean, honestly though, Generation 4 is the worst one in terms of that, because there's a lot of slowdown in terms of the way the battle runs. It's just a slower game overall. And people have shown that on multiple occasions. But at its heart, Pokemon is an RPG. And it's what I like to call baby's first RPG, because while the game is, like I said, the game is an RPG. There's no beating around the bush for that. Yeah. It's very deeply rooted in that type of genre. You're building a team with very specific goals. They all have their own special attacks. It's turn based.
Yeah, you have quests.
You have HP. And it's not really quests. You have a singular goal.
Yeah, but you can like do other things to get more items. You know what I mean? Like
you can do little extra
things that you don't have to do.
But the game wasn't really marketed like that. The game was really, and this is what I think kind of helped blow up the game as well and blow up the whole franchise. The game was really marketed as almost like a virtual pet simulator.
Yeah, that's what I heard too.
And it takes that Tamagotchi mindset and says, these are Pokemon that you're raising these Pokemon, you're creating a bond with them, and it's reinforced constantly in the show, in all the advertisements and merchandise, is that you're creating a special bond with these Pokemon, and that you're growing along with them, and they love you just like you love them. Which kind of makes it even more messed up, is that all you do is you use them for dog fighting, basically.
To battle.
It's just virtual dog fighting.
Well, and I think that's another thing, though. Like, I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, it's dog fighting and stuff like that. But I think it has a lot to do with what else can you do? You know
exactly.
what I mean?
It's an RPG at heart, and it has those mechanics behind it. And that's why it's funny. It's funny that they treat it like it's you're raising these as your own pets, or, you take care of them. At the same time, you're blasting fireballs at them, and
they love to blast fire and fight.
Yeah. And that's how they justify it in the show. Is like Pokemon like to do this.
Yeah, they want to evolve and beat up the other team,
which is messed up because like in the manga, because of course Pokemon has a manga. it's much darker, and like there's Pokemon that like lose limbs, they have scars on them. Like,
well, in the original game, there is a town, Lavender Town, and it's pretty much
Lavender.
like a Pokemon graveyard there too. And it's when you're a kid, you don't, it may go over your head, but as an adult, you're like, and it's got some creepy music too. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
And so when you're there, you're like, and you're older and you kind of comprehend what it is. Yeah, it's like a Pokemon graveyard. It's where Pokemon go to be laid to rest, and it's like kind of weird to think about because it's like, yeah, these are my friends, and you know we're all in this together, but they might die someday. You know what I mean? So it's interesting for sure.
So, okay. So before we get really into the game, I know I've said this a couple times because we keep going back and forth between like stories and games. I do want to get it out of my system really quick because we're going on to Generation 2, and I still have a few things left in Generation 1 that stood out to me. Obviously, I already mentioned the rare candies and stuff. Did you know about the rare candy glitch or anything like that?
No.
So you never utilized that? You never caught Missing No and completely screwed your game over?
No, I actually, I think about a couple years ago when I started to really play around on YouTube, I saw videos of like Pokemon theories, and I found out a lot of interesting stuff through other people's. But yeah, the Missing No is definitely an interesting glitch.
Yeah,
for sure.
I'm really surprised you didn't know about that because that was one of the like really widespread things. Is like, this is how you can get infinite rare candies for free. You get infinite Master Balls, and they're like, you can catch this the 152nd Pokemon, and then there ended up being the legend of the 153rd Pokemon because Missing No was not it.
Yeah.
Do you remember the legend of Peekaboo? This is another like playground rumor that I really remember.
I I never told anybody.
Okay.
Then nobody was ever sharing these juicy bits with me.
So you know the Pokemon Meryl, right?
Right.
The blue round Pikachu with I mean, every generation there's like a Pikachu lookalike. Meryl is this generation's Pikachu lookalike. And so we had all heard there was rumors that went around about this Pokemon, and then eventually like images did surface on like some websites because this is early internet days. This is early internet where it's starting to pick up, and it's a lot more easier access and widespread. We actually have websites that are starting to be built, and there was a website where it was like something had to do with like Pokemon rumors. It might have been the same website where a lot of people learned. Because the infinite rare candies and Missing No glitch are pretty commonly known. I'm surprised you really don't remember that.
Yeah.
But again, because you didn't really talk about it, it makes sense. But that was one that like everybody that played Pokemon knew about it. So I think this might have been the same website where we'd seen that as well. And it was a mysterious new Pokemon called Peekaboo, and it was just Meryl. But everybody saw that it looked like Pikachu, so they thought it was like a new evolution for him or something like that. And it was like, you can get him in red. He's a secret Pokemon, or he's like, you can get him in blue. So people, it was like Mew, where you could find him under the truck type of rumors, where it's like you had to go through all these steps.
Yeah.
And nobody, because this is like, people could just talk out of their butt, kind of like I do sometimes, about anything. And, really, people would believe them because, what reason does that person have to lie? And it's any type of rumor about that stuff. You kind of like want to know if it's real or not.
Let me try and see for myself.
Yeah. So Peekaboo ended up being like, I don't even know how it was. Somebody must have had a leaked image or something like that and really took it out of proportion because there was the game was Japanese first, and then, Japanese versions of it come out first. But here in America, even translation is really hard, and it's just early internet days, it's just you get what you see, and you're not really sure what to make of it, so you kind of just guess. So we all had this little like rumor of what Peekaboo was, and then ended up becoming, and actually was in the first movie. I think you see in Pokemon the first movie, you do see of some Generation 2 leaks.
Oh, you do? That's
because
right.
You see,
It's like a montage.
Yeah, you see Peekaboo, you see Snubble, who's the pug Pokemon.
Yeah.
And I think there's another
There's
one.
like a
Oh, it was
bull
Pichu.
one.
I think it was Pichu you see as well.
I don't know about Pichu, but I know I remember definitely in the battle montage, it's like a bull one, but he can like, it's not Tauros or anything, but it's like where he can like roll. Remember? It's like,
You mean Elephant?
maybe so.
I don't think that was in. Again, it's been a while since I've seen that.
Yeah, me too.
Because it was, it was the little like Pikachu's vacation clip before.
Well, it was there's definitely some Generation 2 and like that montage when it's like they're battling and then like Mewtwo is spying on them and that's how he invites them to the island.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's interesting.
But while Pika Blue was like, the rumors of him were coming up, and internet's more accessible for everyone. We get internet at my house, and we wanted to look up more, see if we could find more codes or like anything. We wanted anything to do with Pokemon, so we asked my dad if we could look up Pokemon online. And I guess he misspelled it incorrectly.
God.
So this
Pandora's
is one of the
box.
first experiences I've ever had as far as the internet. So my brother and I are sitting there while my dad's on the computer, going on the internet, waiting for the dial-up to go through the...
Yep.
And then we finally get on the internet and we go into... I don't even think it was Google. I think it was still Yahoo. That was really like the go-to. Or maybe it was Ask Jeeves.
AOL.
Something.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't have AOL. We had Net Zero.
Ooh.
We used Net Zero.
Yeah.
But we asked my dad to look up Pokemon, and he tried to go to Pokemon.com. Well, it turns out that Pokemon, like Pokaman, and I think that's how he might have typed it, or I have no idea how he ended up getting to this.
Oh no.
But he goes to Pokemon.com. And it was not a legitimate Pokemon website. It was, in fact, a pornographic website.
Ooh.
It just featured, and literally the very top of the page, it says, "Gotta fuck 'em all."
Yeet.
Followed by a bunch of naked pictures of, characters from the show and stuff like that, and Pokemon. And immediately my dad just goes, "Go to your room."
Yeah, you're grounded.
And it wasn't even our fault. He is the one that misclicked it. But I will never forget the phrase, "Gotta fuck 'em all."
Oh my God.
I will never forget that my entire life. It's the single greatest thing I've ever seen as far as it comes to Pokemon.
So don't you love it though? Like when adults they can't pronounce it right.
Yes.
Even to this day, like Pokemon has been out forever. We pronounce
Pokemon.
it. Pokemon.
Yeah.
Yeah, always. How do you know Pokemon?
He might have typed poke a man.
That might
like
be
poke
why.
and then man instead of mon. So
poke it.
Jesus. But I will never forget that. That was so funny to me. And like even back then, my brother and I were laughing our asses off about it. It was so funny to us because it's just gotta fuck them all.
Yeah.
Because again, we were like this. We're so juvenile. We were like still in elementary school, so anything that had to do with a swear word was just immediately funny. My dad was a police officer, so I heard I'd been around him when he was around other police officers, and they don't, they say whatever they want, they don't care. Mm-hmm. So it's not like I'd never heard it before. It was so funny.
Yeah.
Did you ever look up do you ever have internet and try to look up that stuff online?
Not a million years ago when we had, you should do it again. Can't even.
The dial-up?
I just played Sims on that thing. I wasn't, no. But no, like I said, I think where I really kind of dipped into the whole research, of course, I'm late to the game, is when I searched all like Pokemon theories on YouTube.
Yeah.
And found some really interesting intel that I'm like, oh, I wonder.
Yeah.
But, like when I played, I remember just beating the Elite Four and being like, oh my God, I did it. Like that's amazing.
It's so, you feel so hyped up for it.
You do, because I lost like all the time.
Oh yeah.
And
I could never get
grinded.
past, I could never get past Lorelei, just because I had Charizard and I was like, but fire is good against ice.
No.
But all of her Pokemon, there's no like single ice type. It's all like water and ice,
Well,
so it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, and like when I was a kid, I was like, "Oh, I like this one. I like this one." I didn't really have. I mean, I
Yeah,
didn't understand.
You don't care about typing. You just go for what looks cool.
And so
like I used Hitmonchan all the time, and he's like and I gave him like all the worst moves too because I was like, oh, I'll give him Comet Punch because Comet Punch is good, and it's like a base 20 move that like it just sucks.
Or like those moves that you actually have to like proceed in the game, but then they like. You try to give them to certain Pokemon, and then it like ruins your entire moveset.
Yeah, and I'm glad they phased that out now. They don't.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they got rid of that in Sun and Moon. I'm glad they phased that out.
Yeah, that was awful. That would like. That's why like my DS right now. I've restarted it several times, but it's just more of like trying to find my ultimate comp and being like, okay, but then like the moveset, you know, the HMs would always ruin it. So yeah, I'm really glad they got rid of that. That was awful. Made my experience negative. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, I get it. Anyway, so because again, that whole website kind of helps reinforce the reason why because Pokemon was getting ostracized by a lot of media, by churches because they considered it satanic, by schools getting banned because it was so overtly widespread and people wanted more and more of it, or all the kids were it was just a phenomenon, but. So the media ended up starting doing what I like to call hit pieces on it, and talking about how churches were calling it satanic, all the negative repercussions of Pokemon obsession with your children and things like that. And this is one of the reasons. This is another reason why this kind of got reinforced by that. How Pokemon could be a negative influence on kids. Do you remember? Because you like the trading card game. Do you remember the Naked Misty card?
No.
Okay, so that was another like.
Was that like a scandal, Pokemon scandal? Like
it was, and I remember it being brought up specifically. What's Daisy doing?
She just wants to hang out with Pete.
Yeah, I know she's over there trying to get all up in love.
This is Daisy. This is my Pokemon for the day.
This is my
This is my Pikachu.
I choose you, Daisy.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so the Naked Misty card was another Japanese card, and it had gotten translated into English, but it was ended up being censored. Where they had it was a picture of Misty standing over a Staryu, but it was just her outline. It's okay, and
weird. Didn't even touch it, and it was like.
That's all right.
Yeah.
And it was it was just an outline of Misty. It was just an outline. There was no you couldn't see nipples or anything like that. It was just but I mean, you could see the way they had drawn the card. You could still recognize that it was Misty.
Right.
So they had and in the Japanese, in the Japanese one, there's no censorship on it. So in the English release of it, they had, I think, purposely put made it shown that she was wearing a swimsuit on it. And I think they changed the art entirely to be something a little bit differently. But I do remember my friend that we would frequently go to that lived down the street from us. He had the Naked Misty card, and he was like, hey, I got the Naked Misty card.
You want to check out some nudes?
Well, it wasn't even that. He was just like, I got the Naked Misty card, guys. It was just it was one of those things that was just it makes sense. It's so innocent, especially even by today's standards. It's so innocent, and it makes sense why some parents would get worried about that, because this is something that's marketed towards kids, and especially when it comes to sexual content in America. They don't want that to be influenced on their children.
Yeah, definitely.
Japan's actually way differently too. Their culture's a little bit more lenient when it comes to things like that, and they're more harsh on really gory violence than they are sexual content. But there is obviously some things that they're like, it's hey, don't do that. That's right. You shouldn't promote that towards children, but. I mean, as far as like the way they go, they're a little more lenient with that, especially because they have like shared bathhouses and things like that. They're a little more comfortable with it. I mean, here in America, we're a little more uptight. But it's kind of funny because it's the reverse, because we're okay with we're okay with violence, but we're not okay with nudity, and it's weird.
Now in today's standards with horror movies, it goes hand in hand.
Yeah,
you can't have a good well, not, I wouldn't say good. You can't have a horror movie without showing a little bit of nip. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And a little bit of blood.
I know.
A little bit of both.
Little
so.
nip slip.
Yeah.
But so after that, and that's kind of like the Generation 1 was kind of where all of this had correlated. Do you remember seeing any of that stuff, any of those media articles or anything like that?
That doesn't jog my memory, so I want to say no.
I remember watching them sometimes, but again, this is mostly centered around Generation 1. And when Generation 2 comes out, we finally, it starts to slow down a bit. People are a little more open. They're a little bit more accepting of it. The churches are kind of like calming down about it because they realize it's not so bad, especially compared to other stuff. This is when they started going after games like Doom, and other really hard violence stuff like that, because this is also when we started seeing things like Columbine and all these other like school shootings that had really taken the media by storm and had been more about, now we're shifting away from things being targeted to kids and more being shifted towards violence being bad for in gaming in general. And we all know that, at this point, we all know that that's a lie. There's no evidence that suggests that playing a violent video game causes you to be violent. It's bred by your parental situation and how you're raised, rather than your own, rather than something that can be taught to you through media. Now, there's obviously instances that do show that some ideas you can get from media, especially at a young age, it can influence you, but it's more of a product of your surroundings.
But yeah, for Pokemon being evil, I think is kind of
and
overstretching.
Yeah,
a bit.
And Pokemon's just like an innocent little game.
Yeah.
There's
now,
nothing.
if we're talking about GTA, I mean, that's a whole different.
Yeah,
different.
And this is why people
realm.
go over games like Grand Theft Auto and Doom. Doom was the go-to for after Columbine.
Yeah, not Pokemon.
No.
Pikachu, where are you?
So again, we get into Generation 2, and Generation 2 is my personal favorite.
Same.
I love Generation 2. Gold and Silver. And I'll remember the day we went to Toys R Us. Yeah, it was Toys R Us. We went with my grandma, and she bought the game for my brother and I. And I mean, we were so excited to play. We could not wait to play Pokemon. I got Silver, my brother got Gold. We couldn't wait to play. We immediately started going on it, and ended up completely breaking the game because I transferred Mewtwo and Mew over to my game as soon as I could. No, it didn't crash. No, I transferred it over. And I just completely broke the game, because then nothing was a challenge at that point. Because,
I see. Okay.
Yeah, because Mewtwo and Mew were so overpowered. And,
level 99 probably.
Yeah, and I mean, they would at that point in the game, they still wouldn't listen to you a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But if they got a move out, it was just
bam.
Yeah.
Bye, Felicia.
Yeah, pretty much. So, and I think this is when they added something where it was like they added in. Because I know if you trade a Pokemon now, I don't think it matters what level it is. It'll always listen to you. I think they added that in Generation 2 just because of the cross trading that you could do.
Yeah, I know in the newer game that I'm referring to, which I don't remember, it literally has like the legendary dogs, the legendary birds, Mew and Mewtwo. So it has everything. Whoops. Everything in there. And I can't remember what it's called. It is like
Soul Silver or
Heart Gold?
Yeah.
Yes, Soul Silver. And forgot what I was talking about. Forgot I was going with this one. What were you saying?
It has all the legendary birds and all that in there.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
I forgot. Anyway.
It doesn't.
Soul Silver is what it was.
So again, I have more memories with Generation 1 than I have Generation 2, but I do remember I loved Generation 2 so much. I loved the new Pokemon. It's the reason why Typhlosion or Cyndaquil is still my favorite. He's my favorite starter. He's so cool.
He's so cool.
He's the only pure fire type, and I'm all about the fire type starters. I love all of them. And he's still to this day the only pure fire type that we get or we've ever gotten. And Typhlosion's just really cool looking.
He is design wise, definitely in his little form. Cyndaquil, right? Is that what it's called? He's so cute. You know what I mean? He's so dainty, and then when he kind of evolves again, you're like, all right, something's happening, and
Yeah,
then
he gets a little
Typhlosion comes, and you're
Yeah,
like,
and he's on his hind legs, and
Yeah.
he's just like, oh,
I'm gonna screw
he's
you
just
over. And I'm like,
jacked.
yay!
Yeah, I love
Yay,
Typhlosion.
he's the best.
So I remember actually using him a lot, and even when I got the remake of Soul Silver later, because that was when I started to get really into Pokemon again. Was when the Generation 2 remakes came out. I use Typhlosion all the time. He's so cool.
I can not get him. You know what I mean?
I was so happy when Sun and Moon came out, and like Sun and Moon's pretty cool, where they have like these in-game events like every day at these certain times. You can go to this specific location, and you can just find the starters for the other generations.
No way.
And it's pretty dope. And they have
Yay.
all the Generation 2 starters you could just catch right away.
That's cool.
I loved that. It was so cool. But while and so going back to Generation 2 back in the 90s, and this is from 99 going into early 2000, Pokemon's still as big as it's ever been, and I'm still really into the series. And I do have something, because we haven't gotten any visuals in a while. I do want to show you something. This is something I found again, my roommate in college showed this to me. And it's the most 90s thing when it comes to Pokemon, and it makes absolute sense as to far as why you would ever see it. When you see it, you'll understand why I want to show it to you right away. But this is everything that encompasses Pokemon in the 90s, and this is called I Did It All for the Pokey. I mean, you can already tell right away that it's very, very heavily inspired by the Pokemon, or by Pokemon.
Yeah.
I love that little alligator. I love him running down the aisles with the middle finger. It's so funny. It's the Jar Jar.
Yeah. Yeah. Fight that bird. What? Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Do we have to censor this?
No, who cares? I'm not worried about that stuff anymore. But that is, I mean, I don't know. Do you want me to finish it? It's pretty bad. It's pretty funny. But I mean, you get the idea. I
got the
I did
idea.
it all for the pokey. You
Yeah.
can take that Furby and shove it up your
Yeah.
It's totally 90s. It encompasses everything that was Pokemon in the 90s, and I love every little instance of it.
Especially the stripper part.
Yeah,
That was very 90s-esque.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, it's a little kid getting his Pokemon taken away from him, and and then he wants to try to get it back. It's just he's so into Pokemon. It's funny. That's actually a pretty old animation. That was early Newgrounds animation, but again, I never discovered it until my roommate in college showed it to me, because we were taught. This is when I started to get back into Pokemon because of the Heart Gold and Soul Silver remakes. And we started talking more about it, and reminiscing about Pokemon and stuff like that. And he had brought that up from, I think we were talking about some of the old songs from the show or something like that, and then he'd mentioned something about I Did It All for the Pokey, and we ended up going through that and looking that up, and he was just like, yeah, I remember this. And I was like, he's like, you can take that Furby and shove it up your it was funny. I love that part. But Yeah, that's totally 90s, totally 90s. And it just kind of encompasses how, like, if you were a kid in that time, it makes sense. Like, you probably were like that. You were decked out in your Pokemon gear. Your room was full of it. You just
had my
wanted everything
Furby.
Pokemon.
Yeah, my Furby.
You didn't shove it up your
I did not. I got rid of it really, really fast.
I remember my cousin had a Furby, and it would never shut up.
Yeah, it just it just wouldn't shut up, and it was just weird. I didn't really like dolls that had eyes, you know what I mean? So in a Furby that would be like, hey.
Yeah,
or
especially
not even
the one
hey,
that
but
blinks and it like moves its eyes around. It's
like,
kind of creepy.
doo-doo-doo. It's like, what? Have
Yeah.
you seen the video of someone put like a Furby into like the microwave and he's like
Yeah.
still going and
That's-
he's on fire and he's like,
That's a classic. That's an old
Oh.
old viral video. That was one of the oldest viral videos out there. It's funny.
I was dying.
Yeah, and I mean, all those early animations, all of them came from Newgrounds. There was one that was really funny. Again, this doesn't have anything to do with Pokemon, but it was a Britney Spears one, and it was "Oops, I Did It Again." But
Yeah.
instead of "Oops, I Did It Again," it was "Oops, I Farted Again."
Oh yeah.
So that, I mean, it's totally like a product of its era. And, I
Right.
mean, we'll never see stuff like that again. But I mean, I love. Seeing old things like that, and it's just like, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I do too. Especially now, like I'm an adult, and it's just like, I don't really care. People are like, "Oh, you like anime?" It's like, yeah, you know what?
Yeah, who cares?
Yeah, I like anime, and I liked Pokemon, and I still probably will, and I'll still play it, and I'll have myself a grand old time.
Yeah.
and it'll
Well,
be
you
that.
got to get a Switch to play the new one. So
Yeah. Peter, Christmas. We still don't have one yet.
I know. So after Generation 2, I got made fun of, and I just completely dropped it. You kept with it. So since did you remember playing Generation 3 games at all? Do you want to briefly touch on that?
I 2 is more my favorite, and I kind of stopped after. To be honest, I stopped with 3. And when Soul Silver came out, it was like something about it. The fire was ignited again. And I was like, oh my God, I want to try. And
yeah, and I was the exact same way because I actually did play Generation 4. I did buy it like when I was in high school. And this was a few years after it already came out. Because I believe Platinum had just come out or is already coming out because I had a DS.
Mm-hmm.
And then I ended up picking up Pokemon Pearl. And my friend picked up Diamond, and we ended up, kind of playing the games together, but we never really traded. And I liked it a little bit. I wasn't that into it.
Mm-hmm.
I do remember I never even made it to the Elite Four.
Oh.
I made it all the way to the Legendary that you catch, and then I dropped the game after that point.
Mm-hmm. Is there a particular reason, or?
I think I just lost interest in it.
Yeah.
I totally didn't care anymore because I didn't really like a lot of the Pokemon that you get in Generation 4. It didn't really catch me right away. The only one that I really liked was Lucario.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I love all the dog looking Pokemon, all the dog.
They're really cool.
Yeah, all the ones that are based off dogs. I really like those Pokemon like Growlithe.
Mm-hmm.
And even to this day, anytime I get the chance to. And like when I was playing through Sun and Moon, or if there's enough I can do it with, I try to make like a dog team because
oh my God,
because I just
that's sick.
I'm just like Pokemon's all about is basically virtual dog fighting. So why don't I just make them dogs?
To be honest,
I love dogs too. So it works.
To be honest, I really tried to get my Eevee team. You know what I mean, with all the Eevees, a squad, but you have to like breed them, and I know certain like breeding tactics with like personalities go into a lot of like their stats and stuff. So it was a lot of hard work that I eventually kind of lost interest in.
Yeah. I mean, I bred a little bit in Sun and Moon and X and Y just to really kind of like build an actual full team. And I just after about like 5 or 6 hours of just biking back and forth, waiting for eggs to hatch, I was just like, wow, this is dumb.
It's so annoying, the grind. I mean, you love it when it happens, but it's a long haul to do what you want to do with those games.
I know. I mean, Pokemon's fun. It's just there's certain aspects of it. It is an RPG at heart, so there's the grind that isn't fun. Like leveling Pokemon sucks. That's why the infinite rare candy was such an appealing thing because everybody wanted to have their Pokemon at level 100. So why not just have an easy way to do it. They do kind of offer easier ways for you to do that now that they implemented in Sun and Moon that we can briefly touch on. For example, you have the ability to, and it's really funny because it's like you're sending your Pokemon off to like slave labor now.
Oh, what?
Because you have so in Sun and Moon there's like an island that you can send your Pokemon to.
It's a boot camp.
It really is. So there's like certain sections of the island. There's like a hangout place where there's like berries that are not berries, like beans that you can pick up, and then you can feed the Pokemon these beans to like help boost their happiness or their stats, some of their stats and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or you can there's a section of it where it's just like a workout place where you can train certain stats for them, like their speed, their strength. You're basically training their EVs, because you know that there's EVs and IVs for the Pokemon.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You can train their EVs there for you have to spend like certain points that you build up from just doing stuff normally in the game, and you can just let them sit there and do that. And they'll build them up over time, and then you can just pull them out whenever you want. And it actually goes through based on real time too. So if you like leave your game off, like say you have them do it for like 12 hours, you can like do it in the morning, go throughout your day, and then by the time you come back at home at night, they'll be done. And you can just pull them back out. Or you can, what was really the messed up one was you can have them farm for like stones, like evolution stones, or other than that, or items like that in mines, and you can just send them off to mines to work, and they'll find items for you.
What?
And that's like this is kind of like slave labor now.
Yeah.
So you go from dog fighting to slave labor. It's pretty it's pretty messed up.
And they do have another mini game in Soul Silver, and it's like the Olympics.
Yeah, the Pokemon Olympics.
Yeah, and that's where you can mostly get all your items and things like that.
Yeah, I think it was called the Pokeathlon.
Pokeathlon. It was fun.
The one thing I liked in Soul Silver that they did add for that was they had because one of the things that's like important in Soul Silver and Heart Gold, or really just Gold and Silver in general, is like the special Pokeballs.
Yeah.
And I really liked it that you could customize the Pokeballs to like have special effects when they came out.
That was
cool.
I'm
really upset that they dropped that for the later games. And even if you have a Pokemon that has like if they're in a certain ball, the ball will transfer over. But if you had like an effect that happened when they came out of it, it's not there anymore, which kind of stinks. But
yeah,
I really again. There's a lot of like convenience stuff that's in the newer games now. If you're like really trying, like you can have Pokemon just sit there and grind experience points, and they'll level up on their own to a certain point. And then I think you have to like level the island up to get it up to, in order to be able to level them up to a certain point. But most competitive Pokemon is played at like level 50.
Yeah,
like, I don't think they even play at level 100. Because it's just too much of a grind. I mean, I think there are certain rule sets where you do play at level 100, but most people don't grind that much. But I mean, again, we'll get into maybe some competitive Pokemon a little bit later because there are some things I want to talk about with that. But yeah, so Soul Silver was where I really got back into the game. And I came back into the franchise with, my friend and I. We were just nonstop. We were playing the games. And then Black and White came out. Did you play Black and White at all? Or
no?
Okay.
My friend Danielle definitely played a little bit, so I kind of saw her. Kind of whenever I would go over there, I can kind of see what she was doing. But I didn't personally play it. No.
Okay. So Black and White was basically almost reignited. Like, oh wow, Pokemon's getting like pretty. They're actually like getting things a lot cooler and how we wanted to see it, where they added in animated sprites for the Pokemon.
Yeah.
And that was the coolest aspect I thought about it, was that, the Pokemon actually move around now. They're not just like stagnant and like still images. They actually like have motion to them. And then we got to see the advancement of that in X and Y. But I actually lost my copy of Black. I don't know what happened to it. I think I just must have taken it out of the DS. And must have never put it back in the case or something. I just lost it.
Yeah.
So I ended up buying, because they made a sequel, which is Black 2 and White 2. It's just the same game, but they just added some quality of life conveniences and changed the map up a little. I mean, it's the same map, but they changed the gyms up a little bit. But as far as the story goes, it is like a story, like continuation of the story, but it's not interesting at all.
That's a bummer.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of stinks. But what the one thing that people didn't like about Black and White was there was none of the old Pokemon in Black and White when it first came out. You had to beat the game originally and then transfer old Pokemon into it after you beat the game. So what they did with Black and White was they made 150 brand new Pokemon, and you could only find those 150 Pokemon in the game. You couldn't find any of the older ones. And you couldn't transfer them in until you beat the game. When you beat the game, you unlock this like mini game where you can use a second DS to transfer in older Pokemon from Soul Silver or Diamond and Pearl.
Mm-hmm.
And they added that. They added, or you get that after you beat the game, after you beat the Elite Four. Well, when White, that was one of the big things that people hated about Black and White. They hated it because a lot of people didn't like the new Pokemon designs. And this is when we got to see like the trash can, or not trash can, the trash bag Pokemon, the snowflake, the ice cream.
Cone. Yeah,
the ice
very
cream.
Strange.
And the evolutionary form of the snow cone is two snow cones next to each
other.
other.
The art changed too. I don't know if it was just the style, but I feel like the art. Like whoever
but
designed them.
This is
gone.
also like, when people were really like this, because the internet's more widespread at this point. People are on message boards and forums that talk a lot more about it. People that went from praising Soul Silver and Heart Gold because it was so, big nostalgia bait for them, to hating Black and White because I don't like these designs. What's next? A stapler Pokemon with googly eyes. I was like, and I made fun of it. I made fun of it too. I was like, this is literally what they did for the Pokemon designs. They looked around their office and said, ice cream cone. There we go. Garbage bag.
Tripod.
There we go. Yeah, I mean, pretty much.
That's sad.
I mean, there are some original ones. Like there's the crocodile one, and he's like a bandit, so he has like a bandit mask on. And when he evolves, he like has like prison stripes and stuff. There's some pretty neat stuff. Actually, one of my favorite Pokemon from that generation is Stoutland, and Stoutland's just like a sheepdog. He's like a sheep herding dog. But his previous evolutionary forms, he's like it's like herdier or something like that. He's like a little pup. And then he has like 3 forms, and I like the second form, which is, and in fact, I'll show you it while I have the opportunity to, just because, I mean, when people say the designs weren't really that original, this is kind of what they're talking about. So here's Stoutland, and he's just a dog. Like, he's just a dog with like a raincoat. And you can kind of see that right there.
Oh yeah. I mean,
but I liked his. I like
terrible.
I like his second form though. His second form is really cool.
Yeah.
Herdier. And I actually, that's one of the Pokemon that I really liked a lot because after we got our dog Daisy, I was like, oh, that kind of looks like Daisy a little bit. So I used Herdier a lot. Even though Stoutland is a better.
Yeah.
But again. There's 2 ways to play Pokemon. There's play Pokemon how you want, and just make a team that you like, or you can play it for having the best competitively Pokemon that you can. And I'm not about. I definitely like playing for stuff that I like to do, and that's why I start building teams. And so my friend that we got into Pokemon again at the same time from college. He builds teams based on a specific set too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the reasons why he doesn't really want to get. He's not that excited for the new one, Sword and Shield, because they actually limited the Pokedex. You can't transfer in older Pokemon. It's just whatever's in the game is the only ones that you can have.
Interesting.
So he's pretty upset about that because he likes to build specific teams, based off an animal type or something in general like that, and he can't do that with this one.
So what's some new? What are they going to introduce new features? What's Sword and Shield like? What's the T?
So for Sword and Shield, some of the features that they've added is they have a free roaming camera. You can actually circle the map. You're not set to this isometric view anymore. You can look around. They had added something in the previous one, Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, where you could see the Pokemon walking around on the map, and then you walk into them to encounter them.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that they've added into this one as well. There is a few other features that like they have of the new because every generation they added in a new feature. With X and Y, it was the Mega Evolutions, where it's like you have the third final evolution of a Pokemon or something like the Pinsir, where they give them you give them a certain stone, and then once per battle they can Mega Evolve, which is just for that instance only. They evolve into like a much more powerful version of themselves. Maybe that changes up their typing or anything like it. Which Pinsir's is the funniest. Pinsir's is literally he just Mega Evolves into flying. So he goes from a beetle that's standing up on the ground to a beetle that's flying in the air. It's really funny. There's some really funny Mega Evolutions that are just kind of like, oh, that's kind of silly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But a lot of people like the Mega Evolutions, and it was also X and Y was total nostalgia baiting for the fan base because they let you pick a starter from Generation 1. There's a lot of Generation 1 Pokemon in X and Y. It's the first 3D game, so all the Pokemon are modeled in 3D. What people didn't like about Black and White ended up being what people liked in X and Y because they even though some of the designs in X and Y are more or less kind of like the same that you get from Black and White. Like one of the Pokemon is just a sword, like he's Ghost Metal or Ghost Steel, and he's just a flying sword. And then when he evolves, he's two swords.
Oh, fancy.
Yeah, but some people enjoy every generation like that. They can get behind stuff like that. Some of them like that, but a lot of people liked X and Y because they say that the designs weren't as bad. They liked the Mega Evolutions that changed up the game a lot. And then they remade Generation 3, and then that helped bring even more people into it. And then, we get Sun and Moon changes like the entire concept of how Pokemon is and the way you go through the game, because now there's no gyms in the game. There's no HMs. Instead of HMs, you have ride Pokemon that you just use whenever you want. You just call them. Like, say you needed to surf, you just call Lapras using your ride tech. So you don't need to teach a Pokemon surf anymore.
That's
Even though
nice.
surf is a move in the game still, it's not an HM anymore. Pokemon can just learn it whenever they want. It's a TM.
Right.
TMs are reusable. That's one of the more important ones that comes out from X and Y that has stuck around. I think it was in Black and White too. Also, TMs are reusable. You don't need to keep buying them all the time. There's a few other features that again, there's no gyms. Instead, you go through like trials. You go through trials for each of the elements. So there's no like 8 gym badges. There's a trial for each element or typing, and you go through each of the trials that way. And then you get when you finished all the trials on each island, you can go to the Elite Four. And then when you beat the Elite Four, this is what this is what the big problem with Pokemon is, that after you beat the Elite Four, there's not really much to do. And Sun and Moon is more or less the same. You do get like a little bonus area that you can go to that has like super hard trainers at it. There's you can fight Red and Blue from like the original.
Oh, that's nice.
You can do a fight against them, and that's how you get Mega Evolutions eventually in the game, or in Sun and Moon, because they're not originally there. But you do also like what it is it changes it so that now when you're the champion, you don't it doesn't revert to when you weren't the champion in Pokemon. You just stay the champion, and then you have to fight for you have to fight to keep your title.
See, I like that.
And that's really fun. Yeah. But I mean, you still have to go through the Elite Four.
Right.
But instead of fighting somebody for a championship status, you're defending your title, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
And it changes it up. It's not the same person every time either. I think there's a cycle of like 7 different people, then it'll randomly be one of them.
That's kind of nice, because I remember with like a lot of the games is when you hit after the Elite Four. I mean, the only thing that's left to do is collect them all, and that can get kind of like
that gets boring really
that gets
fast.
boring. And I know in Soul Silver, after like a certain number of days or on, it was like a schedule that you could challenge the old Elite Four, old gym member people, and be like, hey, let's battle. And that was a good way to kind of do it, but you have to go to them, and you know what I mean. So when you kind of get tired, you're like, oh well, this is it, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of nice that they're adding another feature to where the game doesn't actually have to end yet.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
and like I said, they add in quality of life advancements every generation. So while I don't necessarily know everything about Sword and Shield because I haven't followed it too much, I like to kind of keep things a surprise whenever I pick up, especially nowadays, because we get spoiled on games so fast thanks to data mining and people leak stuff all the time, and even still, what happens is games journalists, and this is why people don't like games journalists either, because not only do they mislead you with a lot of clickbait, they mislead the entire industry with the way that review numbers go. They purposefully give away a lot of the secrets of a game. I every time I see a brand new game comes out, within a day or two, I already see people writing articles or posting articles about the ending of the game being this is why the ending of blah 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 is wrong, or certain aspects of the game that they don't like, or it just spoils the game entirely.
Yeah.
And there was one, even I think I don't think I mentioned this when I talked about the Outer Worlds last episode, but there was a article that I saw that was just a journalist being completely butthurt about Outer Worlds story and how he didn't like it compared to this other game, and how this other game is like way better and you should play this instead. And it's like, you're so entitled. Like, get out of here.
So that's what I don't like about them either, because I feel like if you approach something on your own, like especially with like movies and things too, so this isn't just about games, but like if you go, or there's a movie that's came out and you kind of accidentally go to one of these articles or go to a review of a movie and they trash it, you're going to probably be more inclined to, it's to follow their bias, or to not really maybe enjoy it as much because, you got someone else's mindset in your head. But if you kind of approach something from scratch, you might have actually liked it. So yeah, I try to stay away from that kind of stuff too, because I don't really want people in my ear. You know what I mean? I kind of want to, especially just with like movies and things, I just like to approach it on my own end, just because I don't know if it's going to be good or not. Or I usually like lately I've been liking a lot of like indie movies or
Joker.
Yeah, I loved it, Chris. But yeah, so that stuff too. But I have a hard time with today's movies, just with how writing is, and I'm not a writer by any means. Can't say a whole lot, but my preference is I feel like movies and just storylines today are having trouble. So I try not to.
It's not that. I think a lot of the issue when it comes to movies is more or less that they're trying to make this, like, because we have these big blockbusters that do really well. They bring in so much money. It's more or less people like want to try to make that again. So the reason why I have such a big issue with a lot of the Marvel movies, a lot of the every superhero movie out there right now, is that they all feel the same.
Yeah, nothing feels fresh.
There's nothing unique about them. You know what's going to happen. I mean, yeah, sure. It's cool to see all these different Marvel heroes represented in one singular movie for the Avengers, but you know how it's going to end. You know exactly how it's going to turn out. The only thing nobody really anticipated, which was spoiler alert if you haven't seen the movie yet, is that Tony Stark dies at the end of the movie. And who cares? Like at that point, I don't care.
I kind of, I don't want to make this about Marvel or anything like that, since it's Pokemon based. But yeah, I agree with you there. I just try and stay away from people
if
spoiling.
You really want to talk about, we can talk about some of the Pokemon movies and how they all kind of like end the same. Where it's like, here's the struggle, Ash overcomes the struggle, meets a legendary,
I think it's like
and then
the hero story type of thing. But
yeah, I mean it played up so much in just anime in general, especially shonen anime, which if you really want to get technical, that's what Pokemon is, a shonen anime. So
Yeah. Well, same with like rom-coms and things too. Like, I'm not really into rom-coms. I know I'm a girl, and I know everybody's like, "Oh, you just brought it up, so you probably do." But no, it's just, I think it's like the setup of the story. You know, it's like boy meets girl, they flirt or whatever, they have a falling out, and then they get back together at the end. It's like it follows a certain set of rules that they have to follow. So I feel like a lot of that is
lost.
Relevant in today's culture with a lot of things.
Yeah.
But that's just a bonus round, because we don't really need to go into that.
Yeah.
Another 45 minutes later.
Well, I know we have been running pretty long. We're almost at 2 hours now. But
Oh my
I mean,
gosh,
I
for
feel
real?
like haven't even been gone that long. I feel like we haven't even touched on a lot of the stuff that I really wanted to get into. But
We can do a part 2 if you want.
eventually, I do want to kind of wrap things up, just because I don't want to get this running too long, and we can always do this again another time. But again, I want to get this out before Pokemon Sword and Shield comes out, so I can get those sweet Sword and Shield clicks that I probably won't get. But
Clickbait.
Yeah,
Clickbait.
I know. I'm really trying to like push the channel right now, but every because Pokemon's so huge, there's obviously a large community of following that comes from it, and I mentioned it briefly. A lot of people complaining about Generation 5. And turning around to love Generation 6, in mixed feelings of Generation 7 when it comes to some of the community. But one of the things that I love to talk about on this show is YouTube in general. Other content that you can see on the platform. And so we do have a lot of people that make Pokemon content on YouTube. And they're called PokeTubers because and that's
Sorry, I just know where he's going with this.
it makes sense. A lot of it is Let's Play based, but there are people that make theories. There's a lot of people that make not really skits, but they do reviews. They do like lore explanations, which I think is kind of silly. And
that's what I like to watch, Chris.
I know you do. I know you do. But we have a lot of people in that community that are what I like, or are basically elitist. And do you know what an elitist mindset is?
You can explain.
Okay, so an elitist mindset is things only should be this particular way. You can only do it like this.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of people,
very entitled type of people.
Yes, and there's a lot of people, people in the community, especially when it comes to the competitive scene, that say, because the competitive scene changes so much, what Pokemon you're allowed to use, how you're allowed to use the Pokemon, they can only have these, or, you can't spam these types of moves. There's a lot of rules when it comes to that. And because there's such a variety and it changes all the time, one of the things that happens is people mod the game. And, they artificially create Pokemon to help them get the Pokemon they need for that stats, because it takes a lot of time to sit there and breed Pokemon that are competitively viable, and not a lot of people have the time for that. And I don't blame anybody that ever wants to do it. I've done it before. Like we cloned Pokemon. We cloned Pokemon when I was a kid. It's not a new concept to kind of cheat. I didn't even mention this. I should have mentioned it earlier, but I have a little cartridge. It's for my Game Boy, called a Monster Brain, and what it is you can when you plug in Pokemon Red, Blue, Yellow, Gold, or Silver. I don't think it works with Crystal. You can modify any single Pokemon that you've already caught in that game to be a certain Pokemon. You can modify their moves to be any move that you want it to be. You can even modify their stats. You can modify their stats when you want to be. So this isn't a new thing that people have done. People have found ways to modify the games all the time. And what a lot of elitists say is because it ruins the integrity of the competitive scene, it should be illegal to do that. And some people do ban illegal Pokemon. There is a way to check for it. But I think it's kind of silly to have that mindset, because you have to constantly be breeding new Pokemon, and even if your Pokemon was an offspring of a cheat Pokemon, say you had a 6 IV Ditto, that you wanted to breed other Pokemon with. So you get like you could try to get a max IV, like Charmander, like something really easy. If you wanted to get a max IV or a max IV Charmander, you'd breed it with a 6 IV Ditto, and that Pokemon would still technically be considered illegal because one of its parents was a cheat Pokemon. It's super silly, and because of that, we have some PokeTubers that are out there. One particular named Verlicify. There are others out there that have the same mindset, but they'll purposely go out of their way and make it seem like because you've created a cheat Pokemon, that you're not a real competitive Pokemon player, or you shouldn't be allowed to play the game because you're cheating, and that's just absolutely silly. I mean, not a lot of people have time to breed all these Pokemon. Do you have anything you want to say on that, or any?
I was just thinking, it's so hard to say, because it's like, I get where people are like, this is cheating, where you can modify, versus the actual real grind. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of like one of those debates, that maybe just never has a right type of answer, So I'm not 100%. I mean, I would say, as a community, that modifying would not be a good idea.
I mean, again,
for competitive play.
I see where there's limitations for it, because when you cheat your Pokemon like that, you can obviously create like Pokemon that shouldn't technically be the way they are, but they do check for that. So I mean, there's moves that Pokemon can't learn.
Right. So
if you have a Pokemon that has a move that they can't know, you're found out. I mean, they do check for it. But as far as I think it's kind of silly to be elitist and say that you can only breed your own Pokemon. You can't. Yeah. And there's like Verlicify, and there's other people out there that have that same mindset.
Yeah, I'm too neutral.
I guess I see why you would want to stay that way. It makes me mad because as being somebody that doesn't have a lot of time to play games, if I ever wanted to get into the game competitively, in order, if I was,
you'd be too far behind.
Well, it's not even that. It takes up too much time. I don't have time to breed all those Pokemon. I don't have time to.
Maybe that's why people feel elitist, is that they've taken the time and they've grinded, and so they deserve
reinforce them.
Yeah,
so they feel privileged.
Yeah, I mean,
not to use a silly word like that, but
But yeah, it's so complicated because I'm not competitive by any means. Like even when I play Pokemon Stadium, I kind of have like a mini panic attack because I'm like, I want to win because I'm so used to winning in Pokemon.
I think we really should do a part 2.
A part 2. There's so much.
The Stadium games alone, and there's just so much to go on with this.
Oh,
we definitely need to do a part 2. But,
yeah. I warned him. I said, okay.
I know.
Are you sure? What do you want to talk about?
So I mean, again, and we have people like that, that are just, they try to ruin the experience for others because they say you're not a good player for stuff like for doing things like that, or they try to call others out, and nobody gets a lot of enjoyment from things like that.
No.
But another thing that we do get, I'm really not sure how I should really mention this, but there is a few scandals that we do get from the community as well. Because Pokemon is a game that's targeted towards a younger audience, we do unfortunately have people that try to take advantage of people at such a young age. And this is an article. Again, I don't like referencing this at all, but this is Kotaku. Kotaku is one of the. Well, again, Kotaku is probably one of the worst gaming journalist places out there. Right there with IGN as far as how they really try to get you with their clickbait, and they try to stir the pot. But this was the closest article I could find that was kind of unobjective as far as the way they went about it. And it's accusations of sexual predation shake Pokemon YouTube community. This is a guy called the King Nappy. And what's funny about that? Well, okay, so his name is the King Nappy. For those of you that don't understand, a nappy is a short way of saying, or slang for a diaper. So it kind of makes sense that this guy was probably into stuff that wasn't really okay.
His intentions were not very nice.
Yeah. And I'm not really going to blow the screen up. Well, I guess I can. But anyway, so you have right here, he says accusations of sexual predation are rocking the Pokemon YouTube community after 12 alleged victims made public statements against 4 individuals in that scene, including Kyle, the King Nappy, McNeil, a well-known Pokemon YouTuber with over 500,000 subscribers. So this is a big guy. This isn't a no-name. I mean, this is well up there. There's people right here, Attack on Sylveon, coming forward about it. And
so
again,
wait, what did he do? Like, I mean, I know what he did, but like,
well, why don't we go ahead and take a look?
Okay, guys. So I know it's been a few years since I actually have recorded something for YouTube. On my way, if you can't see it, it's been a while. I really have no excuse as to why I didn't record at all for the past few years. I just didn't really enjoy YouTube. So I stopped uploading.
So Attack on Sylveon is a name I do recognize because I've seen her pop up in my feed before. But this is earlier. Let me double check. I just want to double check the date on this article. If I remember, this is from earlier this year. April 3rd, 2019.
Wow.
So this is pretty recent. Well, I guess not super recent.
No, a couple months ago. I mean,
yeah.
Time flies.
Talking about. But
why don't we go ahead and skip ahead where we get to some actual...
So did he like reach out? Like, are they all competitors?
The King Nappy, I believe he is a competitive player. But,
okay.
He is more... he made a lot of content. So
I'm just going to call him like Dominic, common name.
Let's see.
So is he like reaching out?
Dominic decided that he was just going to stop messaging me all around. Which I was fine with. I was cool with.
Let's see, where is it at? There's an actual...
Oh, no.
I just wanted to forget about it.
So was he, like, reaching out to these younger...
I think this might be after the fact that she...
weren't that great?
Let's see. No, this isn't it. Where is it?
But I didn't want to cause any harm because I was still friends with his friends, and I didn't want people to like him.
She has moments where she...
I made a Twitter account.
Where is it at?
Private as like a backup just in case my other Twitter got hacked. And so as...
Let's see. Oh, here's the one right here. It says, well, I mean, it wasn't because of that, because the hair and makeup kind of, and both looks like cat ears in the tub. Girl reminded me of you.
Oh,
not sure. It's kind of weird.
It's kind of sexting a little bit, I guess.
Let's see. I'll forget the answer. Where is...
So he apparently was reaching out to underage.
I mean,
people?
I wish it doesn't seem. I mean, if you actually listen to the,
yeah.
In fact, I think they talk about it in the article here. It says, let's see, explained he had a larger following than me and worked with all these bigger names, because she does explain it. I thought she actually had some, what they call receipts, which is just proof. I thought she had some actual proof that she showed on the screen, but I think she just recollects it from her own stuff and what she could probably find. Let's see. Said over Discord voice code that she met Putnam on a Twitch channel of Pokemon streamers, which looked her up on Twitter, led to regular conversations online. After sending her shirtless pictures of himself via Snapchat, she says asked for her nudes, which she initially declined. He continued to make me feel like the bad guy. Eventually says, I'm sure she explains it better. Than what she actually shows on the screen.
He was grooming her.
Yeah.
Interesting. That sucks. Poor thing.
Yeah. Kotaku has seen proof that Carolyn's age, which was 16, was visible on her bios on Twitter and Skype where they spoke. Let's see. And, this is not too long ago. So, I mean, obviously she probably didn't come out at the time. It's something that she came out later.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was just 16 at the time, and that McNeil was 21.
Oh, wow.
So during 2013.
Yeah, he has no business messaging her.
Yeah. So I mean, stuff like this happens all the time. We had we had this happen with the I don't know why that's there. We had this happen with the Minecraft community last year. I mean, we see stuff like this all the time. Whenever something appeals to a younger audience, it unfortunately brings out the worst in some people.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that everyone in the Pokemon tuber community is bad, but they're all again, I guess I didn't even really mention this when I talked about Verlisify. Verlisify is a very clickbait YouTuber. He tries to sound like he's, again, when I say elitist, he really sounds like he's all there is, the best of the best when it comes to Pokemon, and he's always right, kind of like how I sound to my wife.
She's not here
she's
to
not
defend herself.
No, she would agree.
I don't know about that.
What? That I always try to sound right?
Oh, never mind. Never mind.
Yeah. Anyway, she, he tries to call out other people that aren't up to his snuff when it comes to being a Pokemon tuber. So he kind of tries to stir the pot a lot, and a lot of people called him out on it. And I think that will be a good moment to kind of finish it off, and we can maybe talk more about this another time. Definitely with part 2 where we talk some more about the games, because it doesn't seem like we really got too much into the games. Talked a lot about stories, a lot of the community, and how it impacted everything around us. I mean, obviously we're still talking about it now, so Pokemon's such a huge impact on gaming in and of itself, and just pop culture in general. I mean, we had multiple instances of parodies for it. I mean, South Park made a parody of it within one of their first seasons of Pokemon because Pokemon was so huge.
Yeah.
I mean, The Simpsons have made parodies about it. There's the Bill Cosby skit. In fact, I could show you the Bill Cosby skit. Why not? We're already here.
Might as well dive on in.
Yeah, so,
bonus round. Bill Cosby.
Simpsons, Bill Cosby, Pokemon.
But yeah, there's just so much to talk about.
It's just so funny, and like there's even the Bill Cosby Pokemon rap. We can take a look at that real quick. Why not?
Now, my good man, what do you like?
Oop.
Pokemon was the Pokemon.
Now this is an old episode too. This is a really old. I love this episode too. It's really funny.
That's a good voice for him.
Yeah, whoever did that did a really good job.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
But here's the Bill Cosby Pokemon rap. This is an old Newgrounds video as well.
Oh God. Yeah, this is definitely Newgrounds.
What do you like to play?
Pokemon.
What do you like to play?
Pokemon. Catches Jello pudding.
The kids, they listen to the rap, which gives them the brain damage. You see?
It's totally Newgrounds.
What the jail is all about. You see? Jazz is like
Jello pudding.
You see.
swirl like Kodak though. No, actually, jazz is like a new coat. It'll be around forever.
For real, it is going on forever.
It's like a minute long. It's not really long, but I mean, it just repeats itself at that point.
But yeah, Pokemon is around forever.
It is. It'll be around forever.
We'll be old, and it will still be going on generation 30.
Yeah.
0.5 or something. They'll remake Generation 1, and we'll be like, oh my God, Chris, we gotta go check it out. And then we'll forget what we're doing.
What is it? I saw a meme that was pretty funny. It was like, it was like me at age 10 playing Generation 1, and then it was like me at age 99 playing Generation 112 or something like that. It was really funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Pokemon's such a huge impact. I mean, I could go over this game because we didn't even touch a lot on some of the games that I really wanted to. So I would really like to do another one. I think I had a lot of fun with this one. Before we wrap things up, I do have a new segment that I want to kind of start to finish with, which is a little segment I like to call content awareness. And what this is me kind of giving some smaller people out there, or maybe even some bigger ones out there than me. The reality is everyone's bigger than me right now. I'm the smallest of the small right now.
Pikachu.
I'm the smallest of the small right now. So anybody that even gets any lick of awareness is bigger than me. But I do want to kind of help this, not only to promote my own growth by stealing other people's audiences, not necessarily true, but I also kind of want to bring out some people that I actually enjoy to watch. Now, contrary to what somebody in the room might think, I will mention this briefly, but my good friend Pete, he was on the show previously. His name's Messy. He's actually sleeping. Oh, is he sleeping
Well,
still?
he's awake.
He's
now.
laying down.
Oh, you can kind of see him.
You can see his hat.
You want to wave? Pete? Come wave the camera. There he is. That's Peter.
But
Messy.
he recently got monetized on Mixer, so congratulations to him.
Yay!
I do want to give him a
Messy.
shout out for that. He was on the show previously, so I don't really feel like I need to give him a huge shout out again. Even though I did steal his channel for that episode.
He might be charging you ad revenue here in
Yeah.
a minute. So
Yeah, I might get ads on YouTube. But yeah, he recently did get monetized, so I do want to give him a shout out. But there's another person on Mixer that I've actually kind of seen recently that actually encompasses a lot of what I like to see in people in general when it comes to, enjoying themselves on camera. And it shows aspects of stuff that I would like to eventually bring to the show, just in terms of his attitude and things like that. This is a guy by the name of, his name is Poison Kill, and he's a streamer on Mixer as well. And he has probably one of the best attitudes that I've ever seen on the platform so far. Now he is I believe he is a partner because he does get embers as well. So he might be I know he's monetized as well on the platform. And I just really love his attitude. I love everything that he does. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a little bit of his stream on here. So I'm going to pick, we'll pick the one that I first watched, which is Favorite Superpower. Now what he does is he'll start off the show by doing a little, just, talking for a little bit, and then he'll eventually go into the game, which is when I usually drop off because I'm usually just there to hang out and talk for a little bit with him. And he's just fun. He brings a lot of positive attitude into the game, or, into the scene. So this is Poison Kill. Just want to give him a little shout out.
It's really weird.
He has a really cool setup too. As you can see with his green screen.
What's up, Tank? How's it going?
oh,
dude?
that is sick.
Hot dang, bro. You saw I was gonna play some Warframe. You're like, I'll show him up. But, bro, you haven't seen my Saren, okay? You haven't seen my Saren Prime. Dude, it is Monday. And what did I say? Did I not say Monday? Oh, my gosh. Rips. That's how you know it's Monday.
But he's just got a really positive attitude. I love that. I love his attitude. I love.
His green screen is. I've never seen it done.
Yeah,
like
he
that.
does. He
That's
does a lot of
so
unique stuff. He
unique.
does really. He goes all out, especially with these beginning parts. It's fun.
What does he normally play?
Well, it looks like he plays a lot of Warframe.
Okay.
Yo,
Which,
shout out,
again-
dude. I missed your call. I was snoozing. Got home from work, and I'm like, it's nap time. Wash. Launder. Shut up.
But yeah, he just has fun with it. Feel free to check him out sometime. He's on Mixer, Poison Kill. And I just really enjoyed his. I really enjoyed his content. I want to give him a little mini shout out so that if he ever does come aware of this, I would like to see maybe him a potential guest on the show, just to help bring that attitude with it. Even though Jamie kind of ruined the microphone right there.
Sorry.
I want to
We're
point that out
having
on camera. Wow.
Technical difficulties.
No, you're fine. It just came loose. That's all.
And I have a baby now.
Why did she hand off the baby to
I
you?
think she really needed to use the restroom or something.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
She needed help.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, so so feel free to check him out sometime if you guys enjoy
Yeah, that
content
was
like
sick.
that. I guess I can do it again since he actually showed up on camera. Feel free to check out Messy sometime. He makes pretty good content as well.
Yeah,
and I
he's
enjoy,
okay.
I enjoy watching it. And to wrap things up finally, for a final wrap up, I do want to give you a little teaser for the next episode. So those of you that don't, you already know this. The Joker, the movie Joker came out. All right, and it's a huge success. You having some difficulty there? Here, give her to me. Just give her to me. All right. Okay. All right. Anna, say hi to the camera. Say hi to the camera, Anna. Now, I do want to give him a bit. I do want to give you a little brief preview of the next episode to come, which is so we did have the movie Joker come out this year, and it was very successful. I saw the movie, and I loved it. It was a good movie. I know Pete and Jamie, you both saw the movie and loved it as well.
I loved it. It was amazing.
Now,
talk about fresh.
Yes. So, ooh. I did not mean to do that on mic. I'm sorry. Now, because we did see, because the movie came out just before Halloween, we did get to see a lot of, Halloween costumes based around Joker. We've seen a lot of memes about it, and a lot of them are really funny. Now, there is a aspect of the Joker that has come out kind of not really recently, but has become more noticeable lately in just in general as far as the internet. Now, this is what happens. Okay, this is what happens when you take playing the Joker or dressing up as the Joker a little too seriously. This is a little preview of what's to come about people that cosplay as the Joker in real life.
You turn into a joke. Oh, bird.
And I do want to mention that this is at a karaoke bar, not on Halloween. This guy does this regularly.
He sings better than I do.
Well, you gotta remember, he's at a karaoke bar, and
is he wearing full on
he's wearing full makeup.
I love it.
And he does this regularly. Here is another called. Apparently, Jared Leto wants to play the Joker again. Hold on, come on.
Oh no!
Sorry, Anna, you're struggling.
She's
a
so
little too
bouncy.
She's struggling.
She's ready to take off.
This is an insane man.
No! You're not allowed to play me anymore. You failed. You did a terrible interpretation of me. You know that, right? Heath Ledger. Oh, how godlike. What strength to make me so...
And that's your little preview. So, this is a YouTuber, and we will cover him eventually.
Yeah.
He will probably be the next coverage. There are a few others that are going to be in that episode as well. It's just what happens when you take the Joker or you take DC Comics a little too realistically and incorporate it a little too much into your life. But thank you so much. That's going to be it for today. We'll definitely need to come back and do a part 2 for this. So any last comments you want to say, Jamie?
Pikachu. No, I'm just kidding. Thanks for having me, Chris. This was
welcome.
great.
It's been a lot of fun.
It was awesome to talk about Pokemon, which I haven't talked about seriously in a long time. So this was new. This was a good fresher upper, especially for the new game coming out. So
yeah, I had a lot of fun with this one too. And it actually looks like I wasn't recording it
at all.
No, I'm kidding. I
Oh,
was.
psych.
I got you. Got.
It's way too early for April Fools here, Chris.
I know. All right. Well, that's going to be it for tonight, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in. Sorry for it being so long, but there's going to be more to come. So Anna's getting a little fussy, so let's head on out.
Bye.
Take it easy.